Okay, mic's on. At 6 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Ron.
I'll second.
Thanks, Marcia. We have a motion by Ron, and a second by Marcia to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Carries 6-0 with one absence. Van will not be here tonight. All right, item 3, approval of the consent agenda, which includes minutes from our regular meeting last month, and then some licenses and permits for temporary alcohol beverage license for Christian Community Homes, as well as operators licenses for the people stated, and 2 special event permits, as well as board, committee, commission, and agency reports. Approval of the vouchers payable and the budget summary. Anybody have any discussion on any of those items before we entertain a motion?
I have a question.
Sure.
Has the pumpkin done this before?
Yes.
Okay, so really all they're looking for is some traffic control, right?
We've, Todd and I have already had meetings with them on that.
It's just traffic control on a banner, right?
Yeah.
Okay, they did a wonderful job for such a small ask, so I thought it was great.
All the maps.
Yeah, the maps and I mean, it looked great.
Todd did great on the maps.
Perfect. Todd did great. Todd should educate more people on maps. The Valley Brew Fest was still missing one item, but I'm not going to bring that up. I just hope everybody reads the questions and answers them.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Marcia, thank you, Mike. We have a motion by Marcia and a second by Mike to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Carries 6-0. All right, item 4, public input and ideas, limit 5 minutes per speaker. Anybody would like to speak, now's the time. No one wants to come up and chat? All right, we'll move on. Item 5, reports, staff reports, library.
Go. Good evening, everyone.
Hello, Ann.
So the library system will be transitioning to a new email system for sending out holds and overdue notices, and I volunteered our library to be one of the guinea pigs for this. So I spent several days during August watching training videos and then creating the notices, which we have tried to start using. They haven't actually been going through yet. There's something on the other end that they need to do yet, but hopefully that will get up and going soon because they're very pretty. In July, we circulated 4,438 items. We had 94 computer uses, 1,390 ebook checkouts, and we had 27 new patrons. And our library added 138 new items to our shelves during the month of July. We wrapped up our summer learning program in August. And this summer, we had 260 children ages 0 to 18 registered for the program. And they turned in reading records that totaled 2,625 hours of reading. We held a program kickoff event, a total of 7 Thursday afternoon summer learning program events in June and July, and a young adult program and an end of summer learning program party in August. And we had a grand total of 517 attendees at all of these programs. Story time at the first 2 weeks in August, with the last story time of the month held at the OMC play date. And then story time took a break the last 2 weeks of the month. Both adult book discussions met in August, and the book bite was out and about visiting both the Evergreen and Millside apartments and the farmers market. Lunch with the librarian met twice during August, with the second meeting taking place during the trustee training week, where we watched the training webinar titled Everything You Want to Know About Book Challenges and a Bit You Probably Don't by Taslyn Magnuson, who is a Prescott Public Library trustee. For our facilities and staff, our computer replacement plan began in August, where we replaced 2 of the public computers, 1 adult and 1 teen computer, and 3 staff computers. 3 of the computers that were replaced, we then moved to replace the even older self-checkout computer and the 2 public catalog computers. We're hoping that we can continue a regular schedule of replacing a few computers every year. So some upcoming events, we have lunch with the librarian on Monday. We have story time on the 17th and 24th. The book bike will be out and about on the 18th and 25th. Lego Club is back at it and will be on the 19th. And yeah, that's about it. Any questions?
Good report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ann. Okay, moving on, fire.
Yeah, Paul and Joey are on their way down to Florida today for their training for the airboat that they'll be bringing up on Friday. Basically, it was a low call volume, but there were 2 major vehicle accidents. The medical lift assists are down this year, so the conversation with the ambulance was a productive one. So we should see a smaller amount of salary being dedicated to the fire department this year than last year due to the lower number of lift assists. And they've just done some basic training for the wheels and wings. And then they have 3 firefighters currently going through the training at Northwoods Tech.
That last bullet point that you have on there, is it supposed to be, we have 3 new firefighters in space active
I'm
training?
guessing Paul and Joey meant to put a space in there.
Got it, okay.
Being trained to sit.
Being trained to be inactive, yeah.
That's the best scenario, I think.
Well, this is true.
As a former police officer, that sounds like fireman.
Whoa. They're on their way to Florida.
Whoa, not even here to defend themselves either. Okay, moving on. Oh, look who's next, police. That's a tough act to follow, AJ.
I was gonna chime up, but I need to punch, so. How we doing tonight? Great. All right, August the 24, we generated 323 calls for service and compiled 57 incident and traffic crash reports. We made 2 arrests and 1 criminal referral. And we initiated 52 traffic stops and issued 43 municipal citations in August. St. Croix Falls, under our agreement, they generated 16 calls for service in the village of Osceola. Some things of note were that we participated in a few different events in August, namely a National Night Out at the Trinity Lutheran Church, which is always a big night, good turnout and lots of activities. And we were at the end of summer play date at the Osceola Medical Center where we did squad car tours and met up with folks from the community and stuff like that. So, speaking of the 2 traffic crashes that were on the fire report, we were mutual aided to both of those if they're the same ones. 2 of them, the 2 crashes involved trailer units, one of which a tractor had fallen off of the trailer and another a boat had become dislodged off the trailer. So just south of town here, so we were the closest units, and we helped do traffic and get that debris off the roadway. We also tested the alarm system at the municipal building here. We had spoken with the library about how the system works, and just so we're on the same page, we decided just to get a hold of county and run through all the alarms and see if they're active, and everything works perfectly fine. So we're good on that front. Other thing of note, we've been at the old OMC building a lot more lately. Some investigation indicated that this was following a post on TikTok. So lots of reach and lots of kids from different municipalities are coming over to check it out. So we've been very active with patrolling that and pretty good at getting calls from residents whenever there's trespassers. So just one thing to note there. Lastly, we completed our annual firearms qualification for the year at the Osceola Ryan Gun Club, and we are all set for that. So, any questions?
I heard there's some more vandalism in town aside from the hospital.
We took a couple reports of minor vandalism following the skate park opening. Nothing affected the skate park, but there was a garbage can that had paint marker on it, as well as I believe it was the hand towel dispenser in the men's bathroom.
Is the bathroom back open now?
Yeah, as far as I know, yeah.
I had some people complaining it was, like I'd heard we were shutting it off at 3:30. There was one Saturday I stopped, it was closed all day. And I think the municipal building was closed too at the same time. So I think it was some people complaining lack of bathrooms. So I didn't know if it was still closed or what the status was.
I'm not sure about that. That would be a public works question.
Sure.
Anything else?
On the hospital, and we've talked a lot ad nauseum about this. Are the owners under any obligation to secure the building more than it is secured? Like, I know that there's a door that I'm pretty sure is consistently open up at that
He and
top.
I are working on a letter to draft to them for a remedy.
As a
Because, I
private,
mean, I understand, I get the situation that's in play. I think I'm just asking, in the meantime, there is this thing that clearly is attractive.
right.
And what are we doing to manage that attractiveness
Yeah.
so that folks can't get in there?
So Brad and I walked the property with them in early May, telling them what they need to fix. I reached back out to them again in July, wondering where you're at with those measures that we talked about. And then about 2 weeks ago, AJ and I were talking about formulating a letter to get to them saying that this needs to be addressed. This is now becoming a problem.
In addition to that, I mean, they're responsible to make sure that the grounds are kept up too,
Mhm.
obnoxious weeds, stuff like that
Yeah.
as well, so.
There's plenty of ordinances you can push on them.
As a property within the village, they'd be subject to the nuisance property ordinance.
There's so many ordinances you could find to write letters on.
And I think I have no doubt that you guys are obviously well aware of what goes on in there. And I just wanted to ask, I think, what your thinking is around what kind of obligations we expect them to
A lot of it would
be
be
under.
mitigation from our staff, but I'm not allowing our staff in or near that building, given the condition of it.
Well, and I think if you own the building and if it's becoming an attractive place for this kind of behavior to happen, you have a responsibility to make sure that folks at a minimum can't get in and do those kinds of things. So.
I would agree. Anything else? Okay. Well, thanks, guys.
Thanks, AJ. Okay, next up, Public Works.
Evening, everybody. So, top of our regular maintenance for the month of August, we're just taking it a step further and preparing for all the festivities. We're working hard on our sign rehabilitation program. We continue to be looking forward to installing some new signage, but in the meantime, we're painting over 30 signposts. We're going to repair or painted, dredging a mill pond dam. It's kind of a biannual thing for us. As you can see by the numbers, 320 cubic yards of debris was removed. That is our maintenance plan on top of biannual, or I should say twice annually, spring and fall for us. We ensure that we open the gate, we test everything appropriately and beyond, so that we don't have another reoccurrence of what transpired in the early 2000s. Several miles of ditch mowing. That's our second round for the year throughout the village of Osceola, occurred in August. Continued application of asphalt to rough streets. Has to be prepped for the festivities and making things look really well for this last weekend's events. Of course, we had most of the village completely about 40 hours into sweeping, and then we got that good old storm that put debris everywhere, so we were back out there again. On top of that, we were able to clean everything up after the parade using our backpack blowers this morning to get all of the garbage, trash, litter, you name it, back in the streets and swept all up again, including all of the downtown. Our lift was repaired, went straight to work fixing banners, hanging the banners for special events, and also fixing some problem flags. Complete and thorough cleaning of lots in the downtown was completed also in August multiple times in preparation for the painted streets that we see. We got a lot done for, I think, the money this year. Set aside the CIP 15,000. I was able to use a little small portion of 3,000 through our maintenance budget to really capitalize and get a little bit extra done in the way of the crosswalks. They're expensive. These ladder style, as soon as we begin to, either the state or us repairs the road, we'll be looking at going to just the 2 vertical lines rather than these ladders, because they're just very expensive to paint. On the park side, pesticide spray was applied to adolescent trees. We apply a product called 7, a lot of infestation from couple of bugs. Primary trees are our elms and our lindens that just get hammered by spiders, the Chinese beetles, things like that. Chew the vegetation right off of them. So I've been keeping a close eye on them. We're successful in stopping them at this point, and I think we're kind of in the clear at this point in time in September. Cascade Falls stairs continue to be monitored daily, and after every rainstorm, late debris is all that we've suffered at this time, and they remain open, so we haven't had to close them since our repair and removal.
What's light debris? Define that.
Light debris that's just sifting in from underneath. So a couple shovelfuls on each stairs.
Just silt and stuff like that.
Sand.
Sand.
Yep.
That's it. No heavy rocks, no large movement, so. An excellent path was installed in and around Mill Pond, linking to our public parking lot behind Stick Fresh Market. I think, as we all know, the ramp that was installed last year, we put a nice walking path all the way around. We've also made some alterations to what was formerly sort of planted as some native wild butterfly stuff that just it kind of ran its course. Invasives took over, so now we're kind of creating sort of a blank slate, something sort of to align with our future core plan. So we have an excellent trail. We're going to put it all to seed, all to grass as much as possible. Something easy to maintain and something that looks good all summer and all fall. HVAC system update. I know we're going to touch on this again later on, but it's been up and down since June. Rooftop unit 2. We've had some real issues. June 21st is when our PMs were completed by Badger State. Also had them out again as noted August 1st, August 9th, and August 14th. Continued issues, obviously, up until even now. I called in the original installer who won the bid for installing this other building back in 2018, which was formerly, it's Tweed Garrett now. It's formerly certified. Very good at what they do. He came in approximately 8 days ago. Troubleshot, seemed to establish the root of the issue. We received the part on last Friday and installed on Friday, same day. And we weren't having any issues up until today. We're continuing to get the same alarm that's shutting down the unit. So I've already placed a phone call with them again. So we hope that whatever's transpiring here, we can get to the root of. Any questions?
Probably got about a dozen for you. See, roads, right? That falls under you.
Streets, roads, yes.
Yeah, so, Simmons Drive,
I was gonna handle that in the administration report.
what's that? Say-
I was gonna handle the Simmons
Oh,
Drive thing in the
perfect.
admin report.
I'll hold my questions then. I'll let you off the hook.
Sure. Just to follow up on some of the lock situation, we did have, the only complaint I know about locked bathrooms potentially on a Saturday all day. I think there was a misunderstanding between the individuals trying to get in the little restrooms. With our new lock system, they actually just have, the handles don't turn, they seem to remain in a locked position. So now we have electronic locks.
Oh,
when they
just gotta
push-
pull, not turn.
Just gotta push the door. And
Got it.
so,
It was a family I ran into. They were super excited for having it open.
sure,
Not so excited they didn't have a bathroom.
completely understand.
It-
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Todd.
Looks like I have the next 4 because people aren't here tonight. Let me get back to that. Rick and his crew handled the valve maintenance, the annual valve maintenance last month. They addressed some of the security issues up at the water tower, which I will not go into depth about. Rick and I are working on new water tower leases for the cell phone companies. They're looking to add more towers onto the water towers, but they have to do work in order to do that. So they're a little more in-depth contracts than they normally would be. We're hoping that would fix some of the Verizon issues that we're having within the community.
This is KLM. What does that stand for?
Oh, it's an engineering firm that specializes in water towers.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, whatever we can do to get Verizon on that bluff tower. It's been the bane of my existence for anybody that
We're-
uses
we're
Verizon.
working
in
on it.
This village.
They want to add more stuff and decrease their lease. So we're working on that one.
You just mentioned the Bluff Tower, but I think this line item talks about the one out on,
We're working on multiple leases.
okay.
There's stuff on both of the water towers that we're currently working on.
The downtown business
I'll
corridors.
I'll volunteer to hold an antenna if it helps.
Right? Yeah. Build it in
I'm on
my,
a shift.
put it in my yard.
And I do want to say, Rick and his guys did great work. The lead and copper testing that's due at the end of October, they finished that early, late July, early August, well ahead of schedule. They're one of the first municipalities to turn it in, so they did a great job on doing that. Sewer utility, we're working on the facility plan with SEH. That's kind of like their comprehensive plan for their sewer facility down there. When things need to be done, what's the future impact, population, all that kind of thing to the plant. They're working on their GIS system, which is, if you haven't seen Rick, he usually volunteers to show it to everyone who asks. It's just him showing the maps of every point on the community where every manhole is, every water attachment is, every fire hydrant is. So it does a great job of, they can just pull up the as-built with that device they have. So we have all the knowledge at our fingertips, which is a great tool to have.
Let Rick know I'd love to see that sometime here.
So come stop by.
I think we should do it at the board meeting. It's pretty cool stuff.
And then a pump failure was found, but that's just kind of how it works. Pumps break and they get replaced every year. So that's it for Rick's report. Next would be the building inspections. It was a relatively slow month. There were no new homes requested, just a few alterations and some other various little things in the community. So far, we're still behind last year's new home built. We had 8 last year. This time we have 6 currently. Any questions on that one? Admin report. I received the counteroffer from the cemetery regarding the sale of land. I rejected their counteroffer, and we're currently at that point. I'll continue to talk to them at this point, but this time we'll wait to hear what they next propose to us. Budget, we are working on a budget. We're planning to have a budget workshop September 30th. So if that works for everyone here, that night we also have a TID meeting for TID number 4, for the creation of TID 4. So it'd be a good time to have an introduction budget meeting and to approve TID number 4. So that's at 6 o'clock on September 30th. Is there an issue?
Getting a new crown at 3:40. It's gonna be a good day.
The budget, we've had meetings with all but one department head so far. So we're getting a good picture of where we need to be. I've been asking them to keep their operating maintenance between 3% and 5%. And with the contracts that we have with the unions, we're looking at a 5% pay increase to both unions again, because that was within the 2-year contract that we had with both unions. Our audit's still not complete yet. I know Tanya and Carrie worked extremely hard last week with our auditor to get them everything he needed to finish it up. So we're hoping to have that in front of us in October, which is still later than we should have it, but because it's kind of Tanya's and my report card of how we did for the budgeting season. We really like to know what the actuals are at year end for 2023. So hopefully in October, they're doing a presentation on the audit. There's various developments that I'm working on within the community. One of them tonight, you'll see the concept plan for. I plan to get the concept for another one next month or the month after for that too. So there's numerous development happening in the community. Neil and I are working on a daycare initiative for the community. Neil's wearing his family friendly hat on that one, not his village thing. And we're working together with various groups in the community to see how we can help with the daycare issue. So far, it's been received quite positive, and right now we're in early stages of fact finding, figuring how we can get this to happen. Tomorrow morning, we as staff are meeting to talk about our key card system in the community and how the doors lock and the new software program for that. And now we'll get to, not quite to the Sim Drive yet. We should hear shortly on the DNR grant for the Cascade. That should be this month, the Cascade Falls project. I had a meeting with MSA and the National Park Service this month And the National Park Service is really interested in helping us with this project. So it'd be another group that can really help us make this the Crown Park it should be. People come to this community to see the falls
That means national money. Good.
and seeing what they can do to help us, because it would access to the river, which is what they're looking for, more access to the river. So they're very excited about what we're doing with it and seeing how they can help in phase 2 and phase 3. Then Simmons Drive, we're looking to start, or Albrechtson should be starting Thursday, September 12th, and the project should last 2 to 3 weeks. It's going to be closed to everyone, to through traffic, but people who live there should have access daily to get back to their homes. It's affecting majority of Osceola town residents, not Osceola village residents, on where the homes are. There's going to be a road closed through traffic on, what road is that there? I can't draw a blank. That comes out of that development.
Pheasant Run.
Pheasant Run, yeah. No, it's
Oh, you're talking the
the one that
gateway part, yeah.
What was that? Sutton? That one, yeah. And your questions on that project? Angela's here too to help with any questions that you might have.
Yeah, we've exchanged a few emails on it. Again, a little bit of my forte. I don't understand civil construction, but I know how to read plans and specs. There's a lot of documentation in there. When we buy a project like this, we don't just get the physical aspect of it. There's a certain amount of testing, there's verification, there's submittals to ensure we're getting what we're paying for. I also know how long it takes to get that stuff, get it reviewed and get it sent back. I also know that there's certain contractors that like to skate on some of the requirements. I feel like we're late on a lot of this. Again, I'm not in the civil world, so maybe it's a moot point, but I just hope moving forward, we hold some of these contractors that we're paying good money to provide the entire package, not just the physical aspect of it.
Yeah, and there's always retainage on the contract too, and also the year-long warranty that.
There sure is, but in theory, you're gonna, some of the, if we don't do compaction reports, or we have it done by somebody that's not approved, we don't have the third party, or the inspector doesn't, or the engineer doesn't review it, it could be 15 years down the road before we have an issue. I just think a little more front end work would be great. So that's it.
And the other thing too, it's up for you guys to decide whether you want to or not. Albrechtson was asking if they could potentially have a 1 or 2 week extension.
I'd be all for it if they get their shit together and provide the submittals and everything that they're supposed to do, so we verify we're getting what we're supposed to. Somebody else made a comment to me where they've done work with them in the past and they were less than perfect. So the hair on my neck was up. They want an extension, let's hold them back to the contract documents. There's numerous submittals, there's stuff that has to get approved. There's testing agencies that have to get lined up. I don't know that the ones that were listed in that email are probably right. And maybe this is such a minor project, it's not a big deal, but I think we could do a better job.
We did receive all the submittals, except for one where they need to resubmit on aggregate base. But other than that, we have reviewed all other submittals. I can
So-
send you the copies of
So who does like compaction testing on the asphalt, or actually the subgrade?
on the subgrade. I'm not sure who let's see, I can find out exactly who they.
Well, they listed PCI and somebody else that I didn't recognize.
PCI is a testing firm that we use.
Okay. So they do compaction and
Is a firm, yeah, I would have to look exactly who they put for those, but I'll get back to you on those. But no, those are the civil that do aggregates, asphalt testing,
Compaction and slump are the other two that I remember reading about.
and concrete. Yep.
Not my wheelhouse. I went through and I
can get you that information.
don't necessarily care for it. I just know that the time it takes me to do submittals, for them to not have them all done and starting this week, it doesn't seem right. So
Devin, was there any mention from Albrechtson about starting last week?
No,
So the request that the village made to wait until after
Wheels and
Wheels
Wings.
and Wings is over really bears no consideration with regard to their request for an
At
extension,
no point.
in my opinion.
At no point have they reached out to me about a start date. I've left voicemails and emails with them.
That would be the only opinion I would have about their request for
Well-
an extension would be if they had intended on starting last week, sure. But if they had no intentions to start until the 12th,
And so
They did call me and they did ask to start the last week of August.
okay,
I think our contract window with them is just a completion date. It isn't necessarily
yeah,
a start date.
substantial completion, right? Yeah.
substantial completion the 26th,
By
and,
the-
and then the final October 11th.
Correct.
So in theory, they could start whenever they want, regardless of what they told us.
As long as they hit the completion.
As long as they got done by the time it told them to, yeah.
Right,
They could do it in a day and it would be still,
right. I think we're too early to answer their question. Right? I mean,
Yeah, if it comes up where they need an extension, we can cross that bridge if it comes to
I'd be
it.
more worried about school starting.
We've talked to them about that too, and they're in communication with the bus garage to figure out how they're gonna make that work.
okay,
We had our meeting yesterday, our pre-construction meeting yesterday with them.
I think the pre-construction's supposed to be like 15 days after the contract was let, wasn't it?
That's when we just had time to get them here.
Just to my point, there's a lot in that document we should take advantage of, so.
Any other questions about the admin report? I guess I'm doing chamber too, because Wyatt is on his way to Green Bay today. Was it Green Bay? No, Racine, I think. Racine. You're going to Green Bay.
I'm going to Green Bay tonight.
So Wyatt came here because he's traveling across the state too. His update is in the packet. I know they're very happy with the work that was done on the skate park. They were incredibly happy with the gift and the community reception of how that whole project went and the use of it. The business, the Secret Closet, closed. They want to thank them for being part of the downtown. Did the Walk and Roll open yet?
Yep.
Yep,
Walk
Friday.
and Roll open and is operating now. And that is really about it. Save the date, the Wisconsin Main Street Award, Doe on the Go is coming back November 22nd and 23rd. And that is one of their big fall events that they do in the downtown area.
I have some feedback to offer the bid, which was given to me by the fair organization.
pass it
So
down.
you could pass that
Yep.
to Wyatt. I know that in years past, the bid has furnished the funds required to run buses as shuttles during Wheels and Wings and the community fair weekend. And I don't think that there was ever an official request made of the bid to do that for this year, and it just didn't happen. But I think it needs to continue in the future.
Okay, I'll talk to Wyatt about that. That's it for reports.
Okay, moving on. Item 6, other business, discussion and possible action regarding 6A, additional 24-25 poll worker appointments.
I've just had some, few people interested, and with the presidential election, I'd like to have 3 more people added.
Okay.
For poll workers, put on our list.
And the action required would be to approve your appointments. Okay. Anybody like to make that motion?
I will motion to approve all appointments for 24-25 poll workers.
Thanks, Marcia. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Ron. We have a motion by Marcia and a second by Ron to approve the stated appointed poll workers for this year's election. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed say no. Carries 6-0. 6B, new Oki Park parking.
Todd's been working all summer on this, trying to make this happen with our impact fees. I know this conversation started with you and me in April. We're joking around about put a parking lot in there when we realized it was actually a great idea. So this has come to fruition here, and Todd's done a lot of legwork on this one.
Yeah, so as obviously things have changed and progressed and things like that. And discussed at Public Works Committee some of the options where we could spend our impact fees as we're in our 8th year. I'm sorry, it's time to spend those. We're looking at an estimated about $60,000 right now in that parks impact fee. We're only able to use those fees for certain things which don't include maintenance or things of that nature, but new additions to parks. Some of the items I put in front of DPW committee were potential for new playground equipment, this parking lot, and also beginning the sort of laying the foundation for the potential for the park out in Gateway Meadows that align with our core plan. Unanimously, sounded like the parking lot was the best fit with the small amount of funds. As you can see, we have a couple of bids before you to install phase one, which is essentially the dirt work of it all, and then to set us up for 2025 where we can continue to utilize the rest of those remaining impact fees to put on asphalt and some paint. As mentioned in the memo, it's going to serve a variety, obviously, of positive things for the space in this area. Desperately needed parking, large events, and then of course heavily utilized Twillmaker Oki Park, and then of course, as mentioned many times in the past, the diminishing space for our snow removal program in the downtown area. We're running out of places to put it, and so this would make an excellent site, given where it's located. Of course, the farther we have to push things to, the longer it takes, the more it costs from our contractor side of things. So, staying close to town, we're roughly a block and a half from the downtown area, so I think be a great addition to the community.
So as I look at these two quotes, oh, now I understand it. So this is a former quote from JNS that encompassed several projects.
Yeah, I reached
And the
out.
pricing stayed the same?
That's
after you
correct.
called them again about it? Okay, so the last line on there about the 62 car parking lot, that's really the only part in play for this conversation? Okay.
Well, I read them both, and to me, they're not the same. There's about a 4,000 square foot difference between the two dimensions, and then there's a difference in how much I think subgrade is put back. However, I don't remember which one it was. One looks like it might be a better base for a future parking.
Yeah, just from the recommendations from the contractor side of things, one of them was recommending about 221s, about 8 inches. 8 inches of a class 5 base. The second one's recommending, I think
they're both.
The 8 inches of base and then 3 inches of blacktop for the future.
Yeah, I think it's really the subgrade cut looks like the big difference between them. And then the dimensions, one's 305 by 60, the other's 230 by 62. So you actually get, again, I'm not a civil guy, but I think you get a better base with Paragons, but you're going to get a bigger area with JNS.
completely understand where you're coming from. Paragon, in Paragon's view, the existing lot on the north side already, the gravel parking lot that's existed since the beginning of the time, has proven to be a pretty suitable surface. They'll be minor. I know that their dimensions are different. 310 by 60 is roughly the overall. In Paragon's eyes, that needed very limited work or subcutting because of its pre-existence.
Yeah, it's been a parking lot for a long time.
So
does it go all the way, for lack of a map, if I remember right, on the west side, there's a sidewalk?
Correct.
Does it go all the way to that sidewalk?
Not quite. So in the design of this, by connecting 6th and 4th Avenue, also that land where the sidewalk is at this time is within RDC land? RDA, excuse me. So there's the potential for the sale and that sidewalk to go away at some point in time.
So maybe I got to ask a bigger question. Where does this parking exist?
Where is it going to exist?
Yeah.
It's going to nearly abut the new skate park. It's going to be about.
So it's not on, does it go into that grass area that's to the south towards the skate park?
Correct. It'll be about, so the east side of the lot will be roughly 6 feet from the skating park. And then we're not going to impede on the RDA land. We're going to stay on our newly added Oki Park acreage.
Okay,
Is there setbacks on a parking lot or no?
I don't think,
because conveniently, the existing parking
go
lot
right
is
to the
almost
edge.
this exact dimensions.
We can go
That's
right
why I
to the
thought
edge
you
of
were
our
just
parcel.
rebuilding on top.
yeah, so essentially, yeah, we're almost nearly abutting that existing parking lot. We're just extending that to.
So you're doubling the size of it almost then.
Yeah, almost tripling.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because again, did a little aerial on it and it was like the same dimension of what's there.
It is close.
So what's is there runoff or stormwater over there? Is there a honeycomb or whatever you call them?
We don't, we have sort of not sort of, what we have is we have a wet pond to the west side, located on that RDA land.
Yep.
And then
So a rain garden essentially, right?
yeah.
Is that considered that?
Essentially, we, with a matching sized, dry side for any overflow. Now, we, at this time, given any impervious surface, and that's just to the east of it. So the wet side is, on the west side, dry side overflow, east side.
So if you pack that full of snow from a winter, is there enough holding there for runoff?
At this time, we believe so. I mean, there isn't anything.
You don't have any other little houses down there, so it's not like worst case, you're just gonna have a mess. You won't impact anybody really.
Yeah, it's gonna slope away from the skate park too.
Yeah, everything is going to be designed to be obviously sloped from the skate park and then also towards that current dry pond.
Even if that filled, it'd end up down here probably, still not in anybody's basement or anything.
That's correct. Yeah, I don't foresee any homeowners on the south side of Fourth Avenue being affected.
Is there a plan for a storm sewer connection there at any point?
So we currently have one at the skate park that ties into that dry side as well, a 4-inch. We have,
So if the wet got high enough, it flows into the dry
that's correct.
and then it would hit okay.
And then it would begin to fill the dry side. So at this time, from a snow removal standpoint, we've already been pushing a tremendous amount of snow, both from this facility and everything from, nearly 2nd Avenue to 5th and over, and putting it in that down the street into that current dry pond.
Let's just move the skate park there, then you'll have free water. Once it freezes.
We can ice skate all winter.
Yeah.
Yeah, current estimates for paving, roughly gonna be about $40,000. We'll look forward to sort of, putting that into, November's, asphalt. We'll try to get things lined up early, along with our streets. We'll try to get everything, nice and early so we can get some good quotes and hopefully a good price. Which really rounds out our budget of roughly $60K.
I just want to clarify something that you said in response to Mike. So the new parking lot is going to take up a portion of the existing lot. It's not going to take up the whole lot. And it's the intention that the portion of the existing lot that is not going to be used by the new lot, we're going to basically turn over to green space for the park.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that that was the expectation.
Yes.
We're making a long rectangle and then realizing some additional green space to the north of the skate park.
Yeah, in its current form, there's a number of mature oak trees in that area. We're just going to create what's a small sort of island right now between the gravel and the asphalt existing space. Maybe sort of a larger island or a peninsula sort of.
We should have had the Pumpkin Express people draw a map.
Yeah, I did that.
Like I said, Todd drew those maps.
I know, that's why I said it.
I should have provided it. It is my bad.
It's okay.
I've made several maps for this, I think, at this point, but
So Todd, which one of these two bids do you like? Because again, I think there's values to both and they're really not, from a pricing standpoint, it's inconsequential really. Because you're getting more base, more area. It's like a hem and a haw.
yeah, no.
Because let me back up a second. Based on our new procurement policy, we're not obligated to take low.
You don't have to, but here I would say there's no reason not to take the low.
Well,
Unless you have a
I'd
reason-
argue there's a scope difference.
Unless there's a reason to take it, which would be if you think there's a scope difference.
Do some math.
And there's also, how do you determine low? Do you determine by the total cost what they put out, or do you determine by cost per square foot?
Well, you brought up we're trying to put asphalt on top of it. The more, we had long discussions with Angela about the sub base on the existing road on Simmon. And it would last longer if we took the time to dig it down. We just didn't have the money. Now we have a situation where we could pull out another couple inches of sub base in an area and put it back with something that has good compaction. It would probably last longer. No, it's only what, $4,000 more?
Yeah, but then the space is bigger, 4,000 square feet bigger.
Sure. That sounds positive too.
I mean, it's $1.45 a square foot with JNS versus $1.50 a square foot with Paragon. So
We're also in that threshold of over 25,000 as well.
Well, okay, so Paragon does, to my point, Paragon is taking out more, which I think is a better long-term investment. And you're saying that from a square foot cost, they're cheaper also.
no, Paragon's more expensive.
One thing to keep in mind, the $25,000 bid request from the state statute. So anything over 25 has to go out for bid process.
And we're under 25 in theory, at least one of them, right?
Correct.
Are you asking us to approve a bid tonight, or are you asking us to approve an expenditure? Because the way I read the documentation, you're asking us to approve an expenditure, not approve a particular bid. And I just want to be clear about what you're asking us to do.
Sure. So what I'm asking tonight is to, in my recommendation, select Paragon Excavating with the low proposal or quote.
Okay.
And to carry out the impact fee, to utilize the impact fee schedule that has been procuring for 8 years to pay for that.
That would be an expenditure.
Okay.
Yeah, just as a discussion point, I like just looking at other parking lots in town. I'd rather see us dig a little deeper and make a better base for future, which turns out to be the lesser expensive bid. So, are you looking for a motion yet? I'd make a motion, we approve the Paragon bid.
It'd be an expenditure, I think.
Expenditure,
That's what
excuse
their
me.
Quote, I guess.
Quote,
Direct them to-
expenditure.
Yeah, direct them to have Paragon do the work for the quote that they provided.
Yes, that motion.
Thanks, Mike.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Arvid. All right, we have a motion by Mike and a second by Arvid to direct Public Works to have Paragon complete the work as quoted. Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no.
No.
Motion passes 5-1. All right,
Thank you.
next.
Don't go too far.
Next is Pinnacle Development Concept. Is there, no, impact fee needs assessment. Sorry, no, that's not it
Oh,
either.
building HVAC.
Where are we? We're only at 6C. Man. All right, yes, building HVAC.
Sorry.
The update, just an update. I think you gave it already.
I think you already
Um,
said it.
Yeah, so he basically gave the update in his review. We're no longer contracted with Badger State. We selected a new vendor for this, for the maintenance of it.
Yeah, outside of a biannual preventative maintenance contract and not really a binding contract by any standards, they did have the lowest price last year. Both suitable companies, both highly regarded, I have gone back to at this time for a round of troubleshooting and service to the contractor who provided a rebid of the HVAC supplied in this building, including the boiler system. I will continue to reach out to them unless there's any direction to move potentially to another company.
What was the sensor that went out, or what's the issue?
So the sensor that went out was, I continue to get a high pressure sensor oil alarm. Now, in Badger State's findings, at one point was a loose wire. They then went ahead and checked the oil capacity. They did end up adding some oil, which really didn't seem to be.
This is on like a chiller or something, compressor motor?
It's on a compressor motor, yes. What Certified found was a bad oil pressure sensor through their troubleshooting. that was replaced last Friday. And obviously, been trying to keep an eye on things as best as we can. I'm getting pulled in numerous directions. But today, we suffered the same alarm that shut down rooftop unit 2, that being a high pressure sensor alarm.
And that's all I had is an update for you. Staff will continue working on it if there's any change, but we know it's been kind of, especially with the senior setting here, getting hot days is a problem. It can potentially be a health problem too. So I just, on the agenda, let the public know that we're aware of it and we're working hard on it.
How many years old are they?
5.
5? What was so there's construction warranties that are 1 year, and then you can get material or equipment for 5
These were
plus.
5. Yeah,
They're only 5?
yeah, they went out already. Yeah.
I'll say, because sometimes you get that higher end HVAC and you might get longer than that, depending on who installed them. And
I believe our HVAC system is 5-year. I mean, we've expired at this point in time since October of 18. But I do have a lot of faith in Certified and what they're doing. I hope that they can define the issue.
I would say we probably shouldn't be paying them for their service call they gave us that resulted in us ordering and replacing an item that resulted in the same behavior.
Okay.
I mean, they just made us order an oil pressure sensor, install it, and
It didn't work.
the issue persists.
No, absolutely.
In my world, when I take my car to the mechanic and the issue remains after they do repair work, I'm not paying for the repair work.
No, I completely understand. I'll work with Certified,
Diagnosis is important.
especially when it can take up to a week for them to even show up. That's the other hard part. All of these companies, upon making a phone call, you will
Yeah.
you'll see, it'll be a week minimum before they are going to even diagnose.
it's the same with any contractor though, so.
Yeah, and I mean, and we as board members, we're being contacted by the public as well. I mean, we're hearing it from people who are using the building, people who are using the senior center, people who are using the library. I mean, any area that's affected, I get calls and texts. So,
Yeah, I know. I completely understand. We've had 4 appearances.
Thank you, Ted.
thanks, Ed.
The next thing,
6D, impact fee and needs assessment.
last week, the planning commission, Angela presented the impact fees for 2025 moving forward to the planning commission. The planning commission recommended a maximum payment of $6,000. If you've had a chance to look through this, you can see what the current impact is and what the recommended update impact fee was. Todd, Rick, and Angela have been working on this for almost 3 years now?
Mhm.
So they've been working on this for a substantial amount of time.
Yep, so your impact fees right now are from March of 2016. So you're like 18 and a half years on the previous impact fees. So it was time to update specifically, state statutes have changed and you need to update your impact fees. So in the executive summary, you'll see kind of where we were currently on our impact fees. You'll see how some of them are no longer allowed and what we are proposing. What was proposed is the maximum amount that you can charge. I did provide a local comparison, that was one of the questions that came up. Just so you can kind of see how you're gonna compare to other municipalities in your area as you charge these on new building permits. So that's when impact fees are collected. You can, again, these are what's proposed in the report is maximum. And as the plan commission discussion came about, they wanted to kind of lessen the impact and look at maybe like a 6,000. So just proportionately, we just reduced everything by 6,000, but open to discussion.
Yeah, I was gonna say that there's no action requested tonight. It's discussion and input that you guys would like. So when we have the public hearing, it would be a wrapped up document ready for approval.
So I think this, being on that commission, I think the consensus was, let's just pick something less than our neighbors. So we didn't look terrible. There really wasn't analysis on any of it. It doesn't really fund us long-term. I mean, we definitely could warrant the full value. We just didn't want to turn people away.
I agree with that concern, and I think I recognize the need to update it. I think that obviously entitled to do so. I do want to make sure, though, that to your point, Mike, we don't make ourselves less attractive for development. And I think I feel some pressure to pay attention to St. Croix Falls, just because I consider them a community of comparable size that is very close by. And if I were a developer, there's a pretty steep gradient between 6,000 and the number that St. Croix Falls is showing. But I also recognize that we've got development happening. I'm not sure that this would be a number that would dissuade it, but I'm not a developer. And I guess I'm just saying all of this because that's how I'm thinking about these numbers. And I don't know if you have any context you can offer around those comments, Angela, or if you think I'm thinking about it the right way. But.
So I'm going to throw this back to Angela. 2 items. The 2 big hits on this are roads and sewer, which are definitely big expenditures, long-term ones that you have to budget for in advance. The other thing, and I'm going to throw this back to you, Angela, is I think there's a lot of communities around here that are lower than us, but they're also way delinquent updating. We're just maybe a little ahead of the curve, so we might look terrible for a while. They'll eventually catch up.
Right, exactly. A lot of them have had their impact fees on the books for quite a while.
Okay.
At St. Croix Falls in particular. So I do think we're updating it, but on page 20 of the impact fees, you do have to put the impacts on affordable housing.
Mhm.
And it is about a 1% increase to a home cost. So it's, worth considering. But that's, that calculation's in there just.
Well, and if other communities are a little behind the 8 ball and are going to be having to go through this process at some point, that gives me more comfort that we're not going to be essentially $4,000 over a meaningful competitor for development
Well,
opportunity.
the other thing is in all comparisons, you always throw out the outlier, right? For whatever reason, St. Croix Falls is way behind. You look at Somerset, New Richmond, Baldwin, River Falls, all growing, all thriving areas.
Mhm.
They're all pretty consistent, I think, and their prices are pretty close. That's why if this is gonna go to the public and they're gonna see this, I'm okay with the final number as long as it jives with the other ones, but I'd like to see like the water fee be closer to Somerset, New Richmond, Baldwin. Just the sewer fee down, so it's closer to theirs as well, because people are gonna look at comparisons. And you have to be able to justify that. I mean, at the end, it's kind of the same unless there's a reason why water or sewer is so much more expensive here than water compared to other municipalities, It's just, I think, a good idea to make sure that they all kind of jive if there's a rhyme or reason to this. Instead of just picking a number and put it in.
Yeah, I think we picked the 6,000 and then kind of left it up for discussion on how to move it around.
Okay.
We didn't have enough data at the meeting to really sit down and try to analyze each line item. Yeah.
I don't really have a problem with the overall number approach, because to me, I think that feels, if I were a developer, I would be looking at the total cost of my impact fees, and I'd be less worried about where those fees are going and more focused on, like, for a residential unit equivalent, what am I expected to pay?
Yeah,
Which is how I interpret that 6,000 number.
I'm okay with the overall as well.
Yeah.
It's just as well, as long as the actual fees are in line with other communities for the individual ones.
Is there anything about us that makes us really different when it comes to the items that Ron asked about? Are we in a particular place that's causing these numbers to be different for us?
No, not really. I was thinking, I know on the 2006 impact fees, they had a very aggressive population projection. And so we kind of got behind the 8 ball based on the population projection that was given at that point. So we're trying a little bit of catch up, but other than that, no,
Do you
there's
know
nothing else.
That's known as number wrangling, like they were.
Yeah.
Do you know when the Richmond's was updated?
I don't, but I can find out.
Like recently, within the last 5 to something?
I do think theirs was fairly recent, yes.
So
Like
to,
2000.
to Neil and Ron's point, New Richmond's at 14, they're in line at 62. Their roads are at 1,400 and we're proposing 3,000. That would be one that would be worthwhile trying to decide, are our roads really that bad?
I see under the planning commission recommendation, if we adopted the 6,000 guide, our roads would be at 2,500, right?
Sure.
Yep.
Sorry, I was looking at the wrong line item. But either way,
but
Either way.
it's still 1,000 over New Richmond.
It is, though. We are that far behind, I think.
Well, and then if we got a good reason for it, then fine. I mean, it's prudent. I think everybody's hearing about roads, whether you're in the village, the township, or
Right.
the next one over.
Mhm.
Asphalt's expensive.
I guess if the feeling is that 6,000 is, if New Richmond's is only 5 years old and they're a little over us there, we're in line with River Falls. If the other communities around us are moving to update these relatively soon, I'm not really too worried about that number, I guess. I think that it feels like the market would look at us and would not give us the community a knock, essentially, for development based on that number and the conversation here.
And as we said, we need to post this or have this available at the clerk's office for 20 days. We will have a public hearing, set the public hearing, and maybe we'll also learn from developers or whoever, their thoughts on it. And then it'll obviously come forward for,
And to be clear, make sure people know that it's not existing homes, it's only new homes. That-
Anything that's started from
Yep.
scratch, yep.
And are you gonna post the number, you're gonna post the 6,000 number? And that's what, or
so
is,
that's a good point.
like, that's where I'm,
That's what tonight was kind of getting your feeling of where we wanted to kind of go with that, give it some direction, because we'd like to have this wrapped up sooner than later.
I'm okay with the 6,000 number. I would just like to see the individual adjustments be made so they're in line. or be
So,
adjusted.
so to your point, Ron, I think we'd have to go to Angela's different sheets. Your calculations are based on the need over a period of time, right? So if the library needed $100,000 over 5 years or 10 years, it works back to 50. I'm throwing random numbers, but it works out to this
Right,
value.
that's exactly.
So in theory, they're deficient because the right number should have been 7,000. We've cut it back. You've cut it back proportionally.
Proportionately, yep.
So your question is to get them in line.
My question
We're not
is
really then if we go away from her
formula,
formula. Yeah.
but how are all the other communities? They must use a similar formula, right?
Different communities have different needs.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a library. We don't need New Richmond's.
And New Richmond's is quite high because they're going to build a
Building a
new
new
one.
one, yep.
So they have quite a bit in their library fund. So yeah, it's based on needs. It's what have they already, paid off? What have they got? We have to take out any kind of grants. We have to take out any, if, for example, this building donations, all of that stuff has to be taken out of the capital cost and then divided by the number of people.
To Ron's point, I'd love to see the water be at the calculated 579 and not skimp on that. But maybe we can.
Is this indicating that Somerset has a combined water sewer? Because they must have sewer.
Well, it is Somerset.
I know. The same with
There's a
Belleville.
river there.
Or their,
They-
or their schedule must be so old that they're not broken out separately.
Right.
So then it would be a combined, they're supposedly only charging,
To build a new home, you pay $1,200 to Baldwin for water sewer impact fee, yeah.
Well, same with Somerset.
so they gotta be way behind.
yeah.
Wouldn't shock.
I guess from my perspective, I'm more focused on the total number because I just don't think, I'm not as hung up, I think, on the, how we compare within each category. I'm more hung up on like, if I'm a developer and I want to come build a house here, what is the total
Right.
impact amount I have to pay? I don't
Yeah.
really care where it goes. I just care about the total.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody's gonna care about a $6,000 impact fee on a brand new home.
No,
I really don't.
I think that we're in line with other communities. I'm comfortable with the conversation that we've had here. So for what it's worth, this member of the board thinks 6,000 is an acceptable number to go forward to a
Yeah.
public hearing with.
Yeah, divvy it up however you see fit, but yeah, that's how I feel too. And there is no board action that's necessary in this, right?
Not tonight, no, we're
Right.
not. We're just looking for direction to bring it to public hearing so the public has a chance to look at it.
Yeah,
As long as whoever's at the public hearing can explain why the numbers are so different, which is my main point, because I'm okay with the 6,002.
Mhm.
Then I think we'll be okay, but I think that's where you're gonna get a lot of the questions.
Yeah, it
It's
needs,
really different.
the needs-based part of it.
No, get that.
You know, even if Richmond updated theirs within the last 5 years, I could easily see their roads being wrong with inflation and petroleum costs and, yep. I mean, I'd even say even with them being updated, they're probably still not right.
To that point, River Falls total is 5,400 and they have nothing listed for roads.
It's your-
Everything's sewer and water for the most part.
So if you add 1,200 of that, now you're approaching the 7,000 mark.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It's,
I'm absolutely good with 6,000. I kind of feel like if you did the work and we really need it to be 7, well, maybe we should have it be 7.
Well, if it was any consolation, I made a motion for 7 because I thought that was the fiscally prudent thing to do. It died for lack of a second.
You can make that motion
Are
tonight.
there limits
I'm fine with 6.
on how often we can update these?
you're
Oh, that was-
supposed to update them every 3 to 5 years.
Okay, so it's not, I mean, like, if we do this and then we find out, like, okay, everyone updated,
Absolutely.
they're all at 7, we can decide next year that we're gonna jack it up to 7.
We discussed this. We could also bring it down if we see
And we could monkey
stagnant.
with it.
You could, yeah, you can suspend them too. If it like say the economy totally bottoms out, there's no building, you can
you want to
suspend
encourage
impact fees.
growth, yep,
Yeah.
you can, or any part of them.
Yeah, because the report as I'm going to submit is the maximum you can charge. At some point, 5 years, if we think it needs to be higher, then you would have to redo this report, but you can always go under that. So I think what I'm hearing is, I think we'll just keep it at maybe maybe both of what the maximum amount can be, but then also what the plan commission proposed is, and just have it up for discussion as, variable, for lack of better words, but does that work, or do you want?
I'd really like to see Rick at the public hearing too.
Okay.
He needs
Yeah.
to sing for his supper with water sewer.
Oh, well, I can tell you on the sewer, it's just the age of the facility.
I know.
Yeah, his part was a bear.
Yeah, between roads and sewer, neither one are getting cheap.
It isn't. But this is for new infrastructure, so remember, it's not maintenance,
Right.
just keep that in mind.
All right, I guess, yeah,
Yep.
so public hearing planned for October then.
Correct, sure. Yep, we will plan for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Angela. Okay, 6E Pinnacle Development Concept.
Yeah, Russ Kivanimi and Oronzo Overeen are here tonight with Pinnacle Development to present their concept plan. Once again, tonight, we're not looking, this is a very high-level concept. It's not in site plan review yet. Staff has looked over it and given a few memos for future changes that they would like to see. Tonight, they're just looking to see if the board likes this idea and concept, because Oronzo from, not Overeen Homes, excuse me, Pinnacle Development still has to buy the land and petition for annexation. With a positive reception tonight, we can get that, he plans to get that process going, so we can continue on the process of eventual site plan review. And in my memo, I listed some of the potential housing options within there. Within this development, we plan to use a planned use development or a PUD development. We would make sure, the village would make sure that all roads would be built to village specs, so we don't get into the last PUD the village did, where we have 18-foot wide roads. We'd make sure that they're the proper width and everything would be in there too. Russ, any?
Yep. Thank you, Devin. Again, I'm Russ Kivanimi, Cedar Corporation, project manager, project engineer for this proposed project with Pinnacle Land Development. As Devin mentioned, it's proposed as a mixed residential development project, approximately 52 acres. And on the concept plan and in the staff memo, proposed are 61 single-family lots, approximately 60-foot width, 42 twin home lots, which would be 84 units at approximately 80-foot width, and then 34 villa homes proposed at approximately 55-foot width. So 137 total lots. With the twin homes would be 179 units are proposed per the colored concept plan. As Devin mentioned, it's located on the south side of the Village of Osceola Airport on the north, bordered by 68th Avenue, on the east 65th Avenue, and on the west 258th Street. The current property owner is Plainview Estates LLC. The project is currently in the town of Farmington, so there would be an annexation and a rezoning petition request for approval. And as Devin mentioned, with the mixed land use, the PUD zoning would fit this proposed development. The village has existing water main up in the northeast corner.
It'd be right about here in that lot.
Yeah,
where my mouse
right
is.
on 65th Avenue. Village sanitary sewer is proposed to be extended from the north side of the airport. With my understanding, a lift station and a force main, so that sanitary sewer line would be directional bored under the airport to service the property with sanitary sewer. So property provided with municipal water and sewer, and as Devin mentioned, all street right-of-way widths would be dedicated as part of the plat. With standard right-of-way, standard width, curb and gutter, municipal streets, storm sewer, stormwater management, and so forth as part of the development. The green areas show as combined green space, existing wetland, stormwater management systems. As part of design, we need to do a wetland delineation, find out where the existing wetlands are, and avoid those areas with development. Village staff did mention they were not in favor of the proposed cul-de-sac streets. The two cul-de-sacs on the north, as we proceed through design, we'd connect those, and we talked about property to the north along 68th is owned by the village, and the village would entertain the opportunity to extend the western cul-de-sac up to 68th Street to have another connection through the village property. The other two cul-de-sacs on the south end of the project will look at alternative options to connect those cul-de-sacs. Public Works Department mentioned they don't like cul-de-sacs. They can be difficult with snow plowing and maintenance and so forth. So they prefer to have looped streets. So if we stayed with the cul-de-sacs, the village staff is recommending that they be private roads. So it presents a problem with the developer having some public streets and some private streets. You'd need to create a homeowners association and things like that. So that can become problematic. So we'll look at looping and avoiding the cul-de-sacs. With that, that's everything I have as a quick summary of the project. Pinnacle Development's very excited. Besides them as a builder, they have 4 other single-family home builders anxiously waiting for this project to begin construction on this first phase of the Plainview Estates LLC property.
So this is basically right across the street from Osceola Medical Center, but one parcel over.
No, it's a few.
No,
parcels.
it's directly south of the airport.
South of the airport.
Yeah, but as I look at the map, if I'm looking at Osceola Medical Center on Highway 35, if you look directly east from Osceola Medical Center, this is the property in question, south of the
Yeah, but you're
airport.
more than one parcel.
2 parcels?
Yeah.
240s.
And right where the bends
Yep.
down there. Yep.
Yeah, it's a couple miles from 35.
It's about a
So
mile.
Wow.
to reiterate what I said at the planning commission, that I hope the village works to use that piece of parcel on 68th to get rid of those two cul-de-sacs, because the overall road layout's terrible. I'm looking forward to more houses, not on this road structure though.
And that's, Paul and Todd both were saying that we need to make sure the streets are looped so the public safety and the plows can get through.
Is the discussion that both of those north end cul-de-sacs would be connected, or was I hearing you saying?
Yeah, they'll be connected, and then the westerly one or the one on the left side would continue out to 68th Avenue as another street connection.
Oh, I see. So you're saying the eastern one would connect to
Connect
the
to the
west
west one.
and then go up to
Just straight,
Okay.
correct. We'll lose some lots to accomplish that. And again, as mentioned at the plan commission meeting, home buyers, developers like cul-de-sacs, you know.
I don't have an issue with a couple of cul-de-sacs, and I can appreciate that it's a pain to deal with. A fire truck can get in there and a plow can figure it out. I think from a traffic flow, the two on the north are, you've really you're gonna drive everybody out onto 65th on the right side, because nobody's gonna wanna go up 258th in the dirt.
Yep.
I think you're gonna just get a lot of police complaints for traffic flow. It reminds me of Oak Ridge
Yep.
before they put the stop sign in.
No, we agree with that, and we're glad to hear that the villages were willing to work with the developer to provide another connection through their property and dedicate that right away to make that happen.
How much of this plan development is not currently village property?
That whole area that's in color is not part of village.
Yeah, there's a triangular piece,
The wedge on the top is.
top of the
Yeah, the
drawing,
wedge on top is village.
that's
Yep.
all village.
Everything that's currently colored is town of East Farmington?
Yes.
This is
it'll
the town of
be an
East Farmington. This is-
annexation.
And that land is currently for sale, and there's a potential negotiated purchase agreement already in place to, got it.
Correct.
All right, so this is
Yes.
what's
Yep.
driving
Mhm.
those conversations that are coming to Ron, myself, and you. It's town of Farmington residents that are contacting us.
And
So,
there's an additional 110 acres that same property owner owns to the east that could be
Yep.
future development. That land's for sale also.
got it.
So on the cul-de-sac piece, because cul-de-sacs are fairly common structures.
They take a long time to plow and we have 3 staff members. That is Todd's big concern.
So is that's it? I'm not saying that's it in the sense that I'm diminishing the concern. I'm just saying cul-de-sacs are common and I recognize they're annoying, but
They're common, but we don't have the staff capacity to plow them the way they're supposed to be.
I live on a cul-de-sac and I watch the public works crew clean my cul-de-sac. We have a lot of snow, so it takes several different passes depending on what equipment you have available, you know, so first you have to take the middle and move it to one side, and then you gotta keep going around the cul-de-sac and windrowing it to clean it out.
There's a business up on top of the hill here at the industrial park that builds these great box plows.
Yeah,
That can probably
yeah.
help that out.
my community switched from, well, they had the regular
It's true.
dump truck with a plow on it.
Yeah.
And then they went to a motor grader, and now they're using, like you said, an end loader with a box on it. And they go around and clean all our cul-de-sacs.
I guess
More business for Cage.
I'm just raising it only because I think I want to see us be helpful partners with development. It sounds like there's compromises that are being worked out here, and I think that that's good. I don't think that current staffing challenges, very real as they may be, should necessarily have these kinds of long-term impacts.
No, they shouldn't drive the conversation.
And they shouldn't, like I hear that maybe they're not ideal. I think if there are ways that we can avoid them in particular situations, particularly on that north end, I think that's great. I just am not sure how comfortable I am with the current staffing need, which I hear and I acknowledge is real, driving
Right.
the long-term layout of community development.
A couple years down the road, we might have 4 or 5
Exactly,
people
like,
working in that
and
spot.
then we've asked people to incur costs by reducing the number of available lots because of what could be and ultimately is gonna be an experience confined to a certain amount of time.
Right.
And so I'm just saying that to encourage some thinking around how big of a deal this really is. And again, I'm pleased and appreciative of your willingness
Yep.
to work with the village on that flow issue.
And what's happening on that triangle piece up there right now?
Nothing.
I think it's not even being farmed right now.
Right, so I mean, why not just throw a small paved, or not paved, but gravelled area out of the back of the cul-de-sac
You-
and then just dump your snow there?
You've got
Or
that green,
push it there.
you got that green space just over to the right, a block and a half from the furthest cul-de-sac.
Yeah,
So
we
they-
also, yeah.
I just, when you guys are designing this stuff, just like when we were talking about the apartments up there, just think about where, you think you know where the snow's gonna go, but look at it from an operator standpoint
Yep.
and give them a place to dump it.
In this memo, it says if the planning commission responds positively. Did that happen in the planning commission?
Yeah, we're for it. We didn't like
Yeah.
the road structure, but we're
We
for it.
liked it just except for some of the road stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I don't mind the two big cul-de-sacs here because there's two different outlets to get out. But Mike had a good point on the other ones on the other end there. They will need to go through. So there's at least a couple.
Russ made the comment at that meeting that he didn't draw it that way because he didn't know we were advantageous to working with them on selling it. Or working on putting a road through or something, so it's,
Yeah, we work with what land they're looking to purchase,
Yeah.
not knowing the neighboring property owner, what they're willing to do.
That would be a pretty short stretch of road.
Right.
So,
It makes
it's
sense.
kind of a worthless little triangle.
And another thing too is we discussed that we're not looking to add more parks in our community. They would make a payment in lieu of park space, donations, park space. So
How about a snow removal dump site in lieu of park space?
sure.
There'd be, with the plan, with the
Sledding
green
hill.
space, there's gonna be a lot of green space provided on the project with the green space that's located on the drawing. And again, the southwest corner, one of the big reasons for those cul-de-sacs there is that if you drive by the site, that's a really nice wooded area that we'd like to preserve. We don't know the limitations of the wetlands, so it could be problematic to loop through that area with a
Right.
loop road in lieu of the two cul-de-sacs. So if you'd be willing to work with us there, there's a reason why there's two cul-de-sacs there. We need it for stormwater, it's wooded, and there's wetlands in that area that we're not gonna be able to deal
And
with.
what are the initial concerns that have been brought forth?
Oh, it was just the concerns of cul-de-sacs. Staff has received this positive. We've worked the last year to make sure that we have capacity for sewer out there. Because of the length the sewer has to run, it has to run from, it basically runs from there all the way to M. So it's a long run for it. That's the only way the sewer can come in because it's going to be $4 million to get the sewer from 35 over there, which we ultimately want, but that would not allow development to happen. So we found another way to get the sewer to the site.
The green space that's being contemplated here, the long term, and maybe this is way in the weeds, and if it is, you can tell me. But I know we have a lot of green space that the village is asked to maintain. Is that green space going to be maintained by the village at the end of the day, or is that going to be dealt with by the developer, like the long-term maintenance of those spaces? And I don't know their current state. I don't know if there's a need for
Good.
serious
good
maintenance,
question.
but how does that work?
That's a really good question. Right now, it would be proposed to be dedicated to the village as a village facility. And the big reason why is that there's gonna be a lot of lineal footage of public streets and utilities in this project that's gonna be dedicated to the village. So your street stormwater is gonna be discharging to these two green space areas in the stormwater management system. So once you mix public drainage with private drainage, it's typically dedicated to the municipality, own, operate, maintain. Some communities that have done it as a homeowners association or developer to maintain, it always comes back to the community.
We've had that a lot
Down
of
the road,
HOAs.
you'll get it
Yeah,
sooner or later, somewhere down.
Somebody will tax default on it.
Pardon?
I said if you left it to somebody, they'd end up just tax defaulting on it, I'm guessing.
Well, they don't put away enough money for the operation and maintenance, and then all the residents will pack your village hall. You need to maintain our
Yeah.
green space and our stormwater management system.
Yeah, it looks
So
like
when the
the,
residents that are in there, they're saying, well, why do we have to pay for it when it's village drainage also using it? So where do you divide that?
it looks like the smaller one is a couple of pretty large trees and then just prairie grass.
Yeah.
And the other one is a grove of trees. I mean, it's literally a little.
well, that's not a
forest, so.
concern that I have enough to, I'm
Yeah.
supportive of this idea. I think we need housing. I think it's good. I was just curious kind of what we might expect.
Okay, that's the anticipation. When we create the preliminary plat, we'll dedicate the streets and the green space and the stormwater management to the village.
And keep in mind, this is just a concept plan. There could be changes
Yep.
coming down.
Do we have an idea of what these might cost?
What's that?
The cost.
Cost, price point.
Price point of what, the lots or the?
Typical home, yeah.
Well, there's 3 different styles: single family, twin home, villa style. Says to meet various demographic needs in our community. Just an idea of cost.
Oh, sure. Well, obviously, you're probably gonna be at the 300, 600 mark.
Okay.
So are we looking,
The guys that I'm working with, the builders that I'm working with are in that price range.
So the cheapest villa style, that's the smallest. That would be starting at around 300.
Yeah, a little less maybe.
are we looking for a motion or what are we?
No, this is just a review.
But we would, if we could have a motion, your approval of the concept plan, because that all ties to the developer with purchasing the property and punching their numbers, just so you don't change your mind and totally want all single family or something like that. We'd like some type of motion approval of the concept plan, with the understanding it's gonna be revised and changed per staff review and so forth.
We could
But
probably offer an
type of
endorsement.
units number.
I don't know that I'm I think that this was billed as a conversation and a temperature check, and I think we've given you that temperature check.
Okay.
I don't feel the need to do anything stronger for you. I would imagine you have what you need to know that this is what we're
That's
comfortable with.
usually standard procedure, though.
No,
The
I-
first step
I had a
is to have a
question on the lot
concept plan
size.
approval.
Is there a minimum lot size?
That's
for-
exactly why it'd be PUD, because they would not fit into the village code for,
These seem very small.
they would not fit, especially the villa lots, would not fit into the village code. And that's why you'd ask for a PUD for that.
How close are they next to each other?
That'd be their standard width that we mentioned, the 55 for the villa, the 60,
Right. And in
For the
between
twin.
those homes, how much space is there in between each home?
whatever you decide as part of that PUD submittal. I'm assuming you would follow your same setbacks, your side setbacks and front set, with a PUD that gives the developer and yourself as the approval of the preliminary plat to vary the setbacks per code. So that'll be something need to be worked out with the preliminary plat.
I would not be a proponent of changing village code for a particular project. It's in place for a reason. Lot sizes and things. And I get that you have to have so many properties on a lot to make money, and
Yeah.
the same argument we've heard. But we have a village code that we've researched for a reason. And I would not want to recommend making that smaller so more houses can be crammed in there and the houses are close together. It's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, it would not be a village code change. It would be,
Yeah.
you could be creating a plan use development, which sits outside the village code. So we would not be changing village code for
Right,
it.
it skirts,
Yeah.
it skirts the village code.
That's what a
currently in
PUD
place.
does. Yeah, that's what a
Right, yeah, I
PUD
wouldn't
does.
be in favor of that.
But that's why you have that in your zoning code,
Right,
key plan unit development.
Right.
To give a developer flexibility based on where the market's at.
This goes back to my vision though, what I've been saying for years is the village of Osceola is a prime community. We need to make sure that we have planning, right? Planning for housing developments, planning for businesses, planning for what we want things to look like. And that includes lot sizes and roadways and throughways and, not jam what we can, where we can, when we can. It's not, it shouldn't be part of the plan in my opinion. So I would not be in favor of skirting our current stuff either way. So-
And that's why we're asking for approval of the concept plan, If you're not in favor of it, or if you're gonna change your mind, we're not gonna spend money proceeding.
I view, unless, and there's plenty I don't know, but to me, the minimum lot size thing is really a question of how close you want to be to your neighbor. And that, to me, is a marketability question and one that I leave to the market to worry about. If a developer thinks that on these smaller lots, they're going to be able to sell the houses at what I would consider to be a pretty good price point. And if that's a private business making an investment choice that they, I don't harbor the same anxiety about a PUD that I hear you expressing, I guess, because I think that it is there for a reason. And if a developer feels it can work, then that's a risk on the developer to come up with a plan that can meaningfully work. I think to the point, I hear you, and I know we've talked about your concerns about planning and making sure that we plan well. And I think that the challenge I see is just we can't plan for the opportunities that come to us. And so I know that it might appear like sometimes we end up jumping at opportunities as they arrive, but I'm not confident that if we were to be more planful, that we would find opportunities that match those plans, if that makes sense.
No,
And
I completely understand what you're saying. My deal is we've all been through different communities, right? And some communities are laid out nice. Lot sizes aren't spacious and huge, but then there are those communities where they're just like this, 6 feet, 5 feet, 4 feet in between houses. That's what this is going to be. And it's just a look and vibe of a community, in my opinion. That's why I'm in favor of trying to stick to as close to our current village code as possible, not making exceptions for that. So.
Devin, how does the PUD discussion continue from this point on?
That would be something that would be negotiated between planning commission, village board, and the developer.
Because we're pretty early in the PUD discussion at this point, right?
We're early in everything right now. This is basically in order for Pinnacle Development to spend money to buy it, they want to know if it's going to be a welcome project. So, I mean, obviously, if everyone here said no, that would stop the project probably dead for them. Mm-hmm. If there's a consensus that people are going to work together and formulate this development, that we would go forward with it and start purchasing and then petition the annexation once they own it. And then from there, then we would start the PUD discussion of how that's going to formulate.
Sure.
I guess my question and my pushback on your motion suggestion was simply because I don't want to circumvent what is a meaningful process around the PUD.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to hinder our ability to down the road go, actually, we've thought more, or we've learned more, and we have these concerns and we want to see them addressed. And so that's why I was hesitant to go with the full formal motion route, because I think we need time to process. I think we need time to understand what you would be looking for in your PUD before we can commit to supporting a project.
I think
in
a
any
motion
particular
as simple
direction.
as approval of the concept of a mixed-use development would suffice. You won't be putting yourself in a box for a PUD at that point.
I got a question that might help bring this into perspective. So the standard lot must be 60 and the 55 must be on the lean side. What's our current code in town?
I do not have code memorized.
I quick pulled up, or I happen to have the GIS up, and I'm looking at the house I grew up in. I think that lot's 60 wide. It's a Wausau home with a gap and a 2-car Menards garage next to it and room on both sides. And I think that's around 60.
Yeah.
I don't think 55 is terrible. I'm still for a concept plan, knowing that we're going to get some feedback on it, especially if it's a PUD.
Yeah.
You guys would be able to set the rules of the PUD with developer input. This would tonight's discussion really just gets the ball rolling to allow us to start going down that path.
Yeah, 60's been a standard lot size for a long time. 55 seems reasonable considering cost of housing nowadays.
But you are specifically looking for a motion to approve the plan as it's laid out with that
Yeah,
number of homes.
concept plan, as
So
it's
you-
laid out with what's on the concept plan in terms of lot widths, lot types, the mixture.
So if we were saying a mixed
You know,
use,
the
that's not,
setbacks and all of that will come into play with the
No,
PUD.
you aren't looking for a motion with were you looking for a motion with the number of lots tonight? Or
yes,
just
he's
the
looking
plan?
for specific,
Yeah, in
approval of
the
that.
plan with the proposed lot widths, the proposed
What you're
mixture of
suggesting is
twin
more
home,
vague.
villa home and single family home. And the lot widths, those are key for the developer. That's why it's on the concept plan. You know, if we don't like 55-foot lots or the lots that are proposed for the twin homes and single family homes, we need to know that before we proceed to the next step, because the next step, they're expending a lot of money to purchase the land based on assumption of this plan is gonna get approved once it goes to a PUD and we start preparing the preliminary plat and all the other documents. It's just, we want to avoid any surprises down the road.
Right.
I mean, that's typically why communities have us submit a concept plan to the plan commission and the village board, so then you can go to the next step, you have a comfort level.
We've already established though that you probably end up losing some lots if you have to put.
Yeah, that's-
Schedule, right?
that's
I mean, we don't
fine.
know that yet, so we can't
Right.
agree on number of lots because we don't
Right.
know how to make that happen.
Yep, and that's gonna be adjusted. We know that,
Yeah.
what that's gonna happen there, but if all of a sudden we move forward with the preliminary plat and you don't like the villa home widths and the twin home widths and the single family widths as part of the PUD, then that's losing a lot more lots than 2 lots.
Can we?
So you lose 10 lots. That's the difference. I think between the 55 and the 60 foots across from it,
Yeah,
just quick
that's
math.
significant.
So it's $300,000. 30,000 a lot, just rough number.
Is the project viable at that?
Um,
I'm not gonna hold you to your answer. I'm
Yeah,
just asking for your general opinion.
Yeah,
I don't know how tight it's currently
I
constructed.
know that over the years, I've worked on this property and I've prepared 3 or 4 concept plans and the numbers never worked. So that's why we have a developer that's coming in with a mixture that they feel comfortable based on the purchase price and the infrastructure cost and everything, they can make it work.
Mhm.
And bring in the price point with affordable housing for
Yeah.
residents. That's something different than the product you have right now.
Right.
Would this be open builder or would this be developer?
It's a developer and 4 other builders he's
Okay, so
working
it'd be
with,
Exclusive to, okay.
right?
Did you,
Marcia, what's your opinion?
there's a statement.
I'd like to share something. Grant, I'm a real estate agent, but when I do pricing on land, I always work it backwards. Okay, when I say backward, here's what lots are selling for. Okay, here's an infrastructure cost, here's a closing cost, here's the cost of land. And the infrastructure costs are so high that there's no profit. And if there's no profit, the developers aren't gonna do it. And that's why they're narrowing the lots down a little bit. Also, the younger generation, they want to mow their lawns, but a push mower. They don't want to mow lawns, so they're adapting to the young people today that are the clientele, they're gonna buy your homes. So working it backwards, I have a lot of sellers kick me out the door because, oh, we want 30,000 acre, but the prices in Richmond, I got kicked out of there a couple times. Price in Richmond of a lot don't justify that you can afford the infrastructure cost, the cost of the selling, the holding cost, and there's no profit, so they walk away. They don't buy that land. So it's gotta be a win-win with the land developer, the landowner, and I guess the village too. So I could bring those numbers or send them up. I usually go to 4 different engineering companies and gather recent infrastructure costs. That's the cost of the utilities, electricity, the curb, the gutter, the blacktop. Usually there's green space, parks, water retention ponds. So I built that all in and work it backwards. And it's got to be a profitable situation, otherwise they go away. So that was my input.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Marcia, I wanted, with Ron sharing his opinions on the vision and the direction that the village wants to go, particularly you and Arvid, I would like to hear what your thoughts are from a density standpoint, like on how you feel about the way that this is laid out.
I don't feel that a $300,000 to $600,000 home is an affordable housing solution. And I do agree with Ron that that type of development doesn't necessarily feel like Osceola. However, we are in a housing crisis and we need more. But I do agree that houses smack dab next to each other is never somewhere I would want to live, but that's just my personal opinion. I feel like I moved to this area to find space. And so that's that is just my opinion. It is not something that I would look to. But I guess I don't have major objections. I don't know.
Mhm.
But this discussion is helpful.
It is,
Um,
yeah.
But I also am so hesitant to agree to this exact plan as it is laid out.
One way to look at the villa homes too is that, you know, the twin homes are very popular. There's quite a few twin homes in this development. It just gives the buyer something different than being connected to their neighbor on one side of the twin home. Basically gives them the same product, but they're on their own individual lot and they're not sharing a wall next to that home. So it, you know, like the developer mentioned, that if you look at a lot of other growing communities, they're going to narrow lots with long homes because people don't want all the grass maintenance. You know, they want to stay in a lower price point if they can, and that's the only way you can do it is narrower home, narrower lot, narrower home, longer in length, get similar square footage. Yeah, the,
And as one of the young folk on the board, I would say that I feel like our generation has been slammed into urban areas for so long that there's so many people that are buying hobby farms and doing those types of things. And although this is very advantageous, I feel like more of my community is looking for the opposite, is looking for space and to feel rural and like you are in open space. So that does not necessarily add to this conversation in some great way, but that is just my,
So
and I'm not against this. I'm just,
speaking as one of the old guys,
you're
not,
middle.
I'm middle. It's, nothing is affordable anymore. So the idea that we're gonna somehow skew this one way or the other is silly. We're not gonna create estates out here. Nobody's gonna go buy a $500,000 house. There's a $400,000 one down the street from me that's been for sale for every bit of 6-8 months. It's 7 to 8%. It's not reasonable. What are you gonna buy for 300? This. And this is, and you're right, it's still not affordable for what the average income is.
Mhm. And I
But what else do you do? Should we build more apartments out here?
I want to offer to, I hear these things, like I hear what you're saying. Like I totally get all that. That's why I really feel that ultimately that's a question about marketability.
For sure, yeah.
And that's the responsibility of the developer to know what will sell or what won't.
Yeah.
And I think that I agree. I think you see a lot more narrow, longer lots. I think you see an increase in density. It's a reflection of the cost to do construction, and that big lots are harder to sell. I agree that $300,000 to $600,000 is not affordable. It's not bucket as affordable, but the market, as represented by this man here, seems to think that this could work. And I am hesitant to let our anxieties about a PUD or what we think people do or don't want get in the way of ultimately the market trying to build something that it thinks it can sell. And that's my free market flag flying. That I think that if people think that they can build those houses, and as long as it comports with our need for safety and security and access and sewer and all of those kinds of infrastructure things, just because it's not what we would buy or what we would expect doesn't mean that it's not what someone else would want. And I'd say that totally respecting Marcia's point. Like, would I want to live in essentially like the modern version of a row house? No. But maybe there are people who do. And that's a segment of the market that we could realize, and that would be good for the village and good for those people.
you know, I think what I'm hearing, the key sticking point is the lot width. And I can say 10 years ago, I would have felt very strongly 55 is not wide enough. But, you know, we have a development out here on M that has very narrow lots, and it works. It really does. And the back corner of that was, when it was proposed, it was supposed to be mobile homes. And nobody wanted a mobile home out there. So they put up houses and those lots didn't get any bigger. Those are little lots and everybody back there is just fine with where they're at. So personally, I'm not gonna let a PUD stand in the way of this.
Well, I mean, as I've had time to think about this, number one, I think I want to respect what Marcia and Ron are talking about because the village does portray itself as small town charm with big city living opportunities and amenities. We have things in our town that many municipalities of our size may not have as easy access to. We have most of what you need. We have a hospital, we have a decent running hardware store, we've got well-run grocery store, liquor store and 76 bars and, all that stuff. So new construction,
Yeah.
which is what is needed, new construction is not going to come in the form of a half-acre lot with a single-family home on it. It's just not going to happen. That's not how new construction currently occurs. Not where we live, especially with us being landlocked with water on one side. So our options are dense housing in an apartment, which we have already worked through last summer, and we're now stuck in litigation with that. Or something like this, mixed use. And that's, we've already got a couple of 8-plexes that have gone up that I think satisfy a certain segment, and they'll have their options for that. But in terms of single family homes or twin homes going into a semi-dense configuration, this is what this is going to be. And to Neil's point, the market is going to decide whether or not these sell. I mean, we all watched Gateway Meadows sit mostly vacant for a good 10 years when the market took a dip, but that's the developer that sat on that. So, and I'm, and I like what's happening there. I think that the development that's going on there is fine. I think that in terms of satisfying a very, very intense housing crunch that's going on in Polk County right now, if we don't put something like this in place, I guarantee you municipalities around us are already talking about this at their board meetings right now. Like they're all exploring these types of opportunities. And our businesses won't grow. They won't hire new employees. They won't look to do that kind of expansion until the employees that they would hire have a place to live. And, I know Mike knows that there is some housing stock available here. Those are not the single professionals that are just coming out of college for their first job. That type of house is going to be sold to someone who is who's upgrading, or is moving into, something because they are well established. Some of these homes are going to be the types that are going to be available for a family starting out. You're going to have, a couple that's just about to have their first 2 working parents, hopefully daycare available somewhere within the vicinity. This is the kind of community that's going to keep them from residing in Chisago City, Lindstrom, Somerset, and Richmond, Hammond, Amory, St. Croix Falls, Cushing. I mean, wherever they might have to commute from. I see $300,000 and $350,000 homes. They'll last 10 minutes. The minute that they go on the market. I mean, I've looked at the value of my house, which is not that big of a house, and it's already above that level anyway. So if we can get into a $350,000, $400,000 brand new construction home where they don't have to worry about HVAC for a while, they don't have to worry about appliances for a while, flooring, walls, all that stuff. Like, yeah, new construction for something like that, I think it's going to go. It's just a matter of whether or not we want that to be what the village portrays as its image. And, I think every community as it begins to grow is going to get this kind of development at some point in its limits somewhere. You need to have that kind of dense housing to support the growth of your population. And the PUD is how you make that happen. I would approve something like this. I would endorse something like this. I would think that there would need to be some flexibility with respect to the developer satisfying some of our previously stated concerns with regards to roads, but I don't have a problem with even the villa size stuff. I think that there's going to be all kinds of single young professionals that are going to want to get on that right away. You know, there are people that are getting, you know, these are engineers that are starting out at Polaris. They're working at Capco. They're working at the hospital. You know, these individuals are just looking to get themselves into a mortgage. They're not the kind of people like me, Ron, Marcia. I like a bigger place. I like a little bit more land. I don't mind mowing my lawn, but there's going to be some other folks that are going to want that. In terms of a motion tonight, I would support making a motion to endorse the, I would make a motion to endorse the project as presented, with a caveat that you're going to have to make some accommodations as we develop the PUD to accommodate the charm that we have as a village.
Yep.
You're going to get some pushback on some of the stuff that's going to push towards density, and just be prepared for that.
And just to be clear, I'm not asking for half acre, quarter acre lots.
Right. Sure.
But you've been to some communities and they are literally
Yeah, Schaefer.
4 feet apart.
Yeah,
3
Schaefer
feet
would be
apart,
one like that.
right?
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom. It's like,
Yeah.
it looks completely out of place. And if we ever hope to attract other businesses or housing developments, there's not going to be someone to come in and buy that extra lot to put in 1 acre, $700,000 houses, because they're next to this.
Yeah.
You know, next to a more density.
Yeah.
Very nice, very well needed, looks great. I mean, I'm not putting it down at all, so
Yeah.
please don't take it that
Yeah.
way. I just know what these dense projects look like, because I've been doing those suburbs, and some suburbs have it figured out and some do not. I just don't want to become one of those communities.
And I guess I agree with everything that Brad said. I am conceptually supportive of this. I think that this is an appropriate place in our community for this kind of development to happen. I recognize the economics that drive it, and I acknowledge that this is what new housing development looks like these days, and we have to take the market as it is. I think on the motion point, I would like us to retain as much flexibility as we can, so that as concerns that are being articulated here are raised, there is not the perception that we are boxed in to any particular item. That kind of irks me a little bit, that I think that there are going to be concerns raised, and every development is a matter of push and pull and discussion. And I want to see us retain that flexibility as we go through it. But for my part, I am supportive of this kind of concept and would like to see it come through for us, because I think we need the housing.
So how would you word the motion?
I don't know. I mean, I entered this conversation thinking this was just a chat fest and that we were not going to be asked to put a motion forward. And I'm unclear on what specifics, if any, you are looking for us to commit to tonight. And I think that that's part of my reluctance is, and maybe people have a better understanding of what we're being asked to agree to tonight or not, but I'm not sure I'm clear on what you want us to commit to holding to and what would remain flexible.
Are we looking to build a TIF on this too?
That would have to be negotiated to figure out what their infrastructure and what the bud for is.
So this isn't in relation to creation of TID 4 and
No,
TIF associated?
happy coincidence.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I think the only motion that could be crafted that would allow you to have some peace of mind, I guess, would be one to say that the board endorses the development strategy, but maybe not the plan perfectly. You know, I would be willing to make a motion to endorse the plan strategy. I don't know that I would indicate that this particular plan as it is specifically presented is the final version that we would ultimately land on.
Is that enough for you?
What
So-
about the proposed lot widths? Can you?
I don't have a
commit to
problem with
that?
those. I don't have a problem
If
with
you can
those.
commit to the lot widths, I think that's the key in
We had
terms
some
of the,
language to suggest it includes the approximate blend of lots as described.
yeah, the blend of lots and the lot widths that are listed on the concept
Yeah,
plan.
I would say, yeah, maybe
you
what
could
we
do
could do
that,
is,
that
we
would-
could indicate that, you know, right now you have what looks to be like about 25% of your stated lots is as villas, 75% being larger lots.
Yeah, the
So
villa lot
that would
is a-
be
is a
something that
smaller
I'd be all right with.
percentage.
As
What's
long as the plan doesn't go above the current mix with regard to the villas,
Right.
I'm fine with that. Like then we, you know, because it's densified as it's currently stated.
Yeah,
Just-
we're okay with
You
that.
just can't, you're concerned that we might have some change of heart. later on down the road, we also would want to protect our endorsement. You know, we could say, sure, we like this, and then you present a final site plan that we have to review that includes 70 villas. And that wouldn't be something that we would be in favor of for Ron's part, or for, because of Ron's point.
I'll make the motion that we endorse this project using the blend of lots as listed in the legend on this document.
Yeah, perfect.
I'll second that.
That's fair.
And that works for me. So, cool. All right, we have a motion by Mike and a second by myself to endorse this project with the blend as presented. Any discussion on that motion?
Fix the roads.
Yeah. It'll be tax base.
I'm gonna do a roll call vote on this one, if that's okay, just so that we don't have to decide how many people said aye or nay. So Neil?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Myself is an aye. Ron?
Nay. Aye.
Arvid is an aye. Vote your conscience.
Nay.
Motion passes 4-2.
Thank you very much. Good
Thanks.
discussion.
I appreciate the discussion.
Yeah.
That was fantastic. Okay, moving on. We go to 6F, remove interim for the police chief.
Yeah, so last December, when council member or board member Ron Pedges retired, we gave the interim title to Andrew Bach to be the police chief. Since then, we posted the job. There were no applicants to the liking of it. We talked about merger in that time too. AJ reluctantly took the interim title and said he wanted to do it for no more than 4 months. Here we are almost a year later and he still has the interim title. He's done a great job. He's asked the right questions. He's invested in the community. He's been here, how long now? 12 years? No.
You mean with the police?
Yeah.
Yeah, 12 years.
12 years. So it's, I think he learned on the fly that he's very capable of doing this job. He's done it well so far, and I would recommend that we remove the interim title for Police Chief Buck.
Can I make that motion?
I
There,
will
I did.
second.
All right, we have a motion by Mike and a second by Arvid to remove the title of interim.
That makes him unemployed then, right? If he's not interim.
Any
He just got fired.
Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Carries.
And then we'll do a swearing-in ceremony on September 30th.
Great.
Um,
Congratulations. Thank you. Well deserved. Okay, moving then right into the next thing, which is continuing on with the Osceola Police Force and approval to post for 2 police officer positions.
Yeah, since we are halting our discussion with merger with St. Croix, we're looking to get our police staff back up to 5 officers. When we started the negotiation, we were asked to remove our postings because we would have had a fully functional department if we merged. We're just looking to repost the jobs that were listed, and then we go in closed session, discuss possible negotiation strategies with the new contract with the police officers. And any questions you have for AJ about that being the proper number?
How long does our service agreement go?
Until the end of September.
At what point will we discuss the termination of that service agreement? We just won't renew it?
We
I
just won't
believe
renew
it
it.
just lapses.
Yeah, it's either lapse or renew. And at this point, we have no intentions to re-enter into it.
5 is the force that we have budgeted for, I assume.
Yes, 1 police chief and then 4
4 full-time officers.
4 full-time officers.
The number that we've always been at was 6, but we've never gotten back there. The police department never had since its audits and stuff, so.
Yeah.
5 is what they had before the negotiations to merge.
And does 5 allow for 24-hour coverage, or is 5
Barely.
it's just like by the hair and our chinny?
It's holidays or
Vacations and holidays.
vacation and sick.
Yeah.
And
sickness.
it's why we have the mutual with the county to fill in.
Yeah. Moving Kelly time helped, but it's barely there.
So you're looking for a motion to post an ad to hire 2 more officers?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by myself, second by Neil, to post for 2 police officer positions. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Carries. Thank you.
Just got in, brain dead.
AJ, if you can stick around for the other one.
6H Fire Hall Roof.
We're gonna lose the camera recording.
I keep monitoring it.
Yeah, he's watching the
I
YouTube.
keep flipping back and forth, making sure. So the roof, Paul cannot be here tonight, but in our 2024 and 25 CIP, we budgeted $70,000 for the replacement of the front roof of the fire hall. It is before you tonight because he is $800 over of his CIP. He plans to use his operating maintenance budget for the building and maintenance part of it. And we recommend going with, what was that? Sunrise Remodelers to fix the roof. That they're the only ones that would have the fashion to fix the flooding issue that he was experiencing.
Great, which is desperately needed.
How old is that roof?
Well, we bought it in 2018.
Right, but it wasn't that old.
The roof was put in. The problem is not the roof itself; it's where it connects to the building. It's leaking inside. So,
The little part in the front.
so, and we're also future proofing the roof. So, if in the future we,
Decide to go steel, we can.
Yep.
So the circles don't mean anything. He's actually doing a turnkey bid on the whole thing.
Yes.
it was his notes. Unfortunately, we didn't get clean copies.
Yes. And then on a side conversation, is he then going to plan on spending what he was planning on spending to do the furnace and air conditioning then? Because he was thinking about doing
If there's money in that budget for by the end of the year, he plans on doing that.
that.
He
Yes,
might
okay.
he might do half in December and half in January,
Got it.
so he has enough money to cover it.
Cool. All right. Well, this is the direction we told him to go. We couldn't make steel work. I offered to meet him halfway with it and he didn't want to fundraise the other half. So
I'll make the motion that we accept the bid.
I'll second.
Sunrise Roofing, yeah.
all right. Thanks, Ron. Thanks, Arvid. We have a motion by Ron and a second by Arvid to accept the bid. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries 6-0. All right, 6I, skate park update.
I just updated the skate park that there was a second edition added to the skate park. Thank you, Marcia and Wyatt, for the hard work to finding funds to allow this to happen. The skate park addition still is under 1 acre of disturbance, so it did not need a DNR permit for that. Our agreement with the skate park allowed them for construction up to a year on the contract. So anything you want to add to that?
Nope. Did you have any specific questions?
Yeah, I'm uncomfortable that that second phase wasn't proposed in the planning commission and it wasn't in the packet that came through. I think it sets a really bad example. So I guess I'd like somebody to explain to me how we went ahead with it without having those two approvals.
In the planning commission documents that we presented, we said the skate elements were subject to change. And in our mind, those are skate elements that were being added under that 10,000 square foot footprint.
Yeah.
We got a grant. We went to Devin, asked if there was any other documentation needed. He said no. So
I'm super disappointed.
I have a side question related to this. What if another $100,000 grant shows up tomorrow? Then what?
this is an extremely rare situation. They were aware of this grant that we applied for in June, and we were really hoping that we would be awarded that money. We were awarded that money 3 days after they left. They were on a project in Ladysmith, and they agreed to move their schedule around to come back for this addition. If there's more money, they will not be able to come back. This was a very rare situation that they were within the area to come back.
But I'd like to hope if you got any more money, we could move towards fixing the bathrooms or the parking lot or the lighting. All
I
things that
don't
were
know
brought up
that-
before.
I don't
Well,
know that
I-
how we choose to spend our money is up to the discretion of the board.
Sure. I think it's up to the discretion of the board and what you build over there, and that didn't happen, so.
But I asked about it because I had some people ask me,
Sure,
and I
sure.
didn't know about it. I didn't know that it was under an acre, that you still had the extra funding, and that was within the bounds.
Sure.
So it's good that they could come back.
Yeah, very, very rare situation that was presented. The grant that we received is also going to be made public on Thursday per the national campaign of that grant funding. So
Yeah.
we're also have kind of our tongues tied until Thursday as
Yeah.
to how that money came to be.
I would just ask, make sure to any future projects for anyone in the village that plans to donate money is make sure that we're aware of start dates.
I would say if this type of project happens in the future where a recreational project is gifted, I would say maybe in the license agreement, there's specific wording added about when, if there's a type of document that you would like to see that says construction has ended. We were under the impression that we were still able to plant trees and put up signs and do things like that within the calendar year of that location. And those are things that we still would like to do to beautify the space. So if that is not something that makes sense within the license agreement, then we should have a future project like this reflect that.
My point goes around permittable items, and that's a poured piece of concrete, and it potentially reaches into that stormwater thing that I pointed out. It's the same standard we'd hold every other entity to in town. Now, if somebody came up like the Fair Building wanted to plant a tree, that's not a permittable process that I'm aware of. If they wanted to come out and pour more concrete or do some construction inside or something along those lines, those are items that are reviewed by the Planning Commission and the board. If you were to build a gazebo over there, I would hope you would come back and we'd go back for a review.
Sure. Again, this was skatable features that we felt like fell within the realm of what we had asked. I don't have anything else to say. I'm just curious, is there anything that you would like? Do you feel, I'm curious what you want out of this.
If this was a private citizen and they built a retaining wall without a permit, we'd double permit them.
Right. And we have no permits for this project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get it. The point was, it wasn't approved and we did it. It sets a horrible standard for everybody else. The next person that comes in here that wants a permit or they get in trouble, I'm going to say, yeah, it's not a big deal.
I would be really
interpretation.
disappointed if you use the skate park as an example of poor project planning. I asked Devin if anything else was needed and he said no.
Yeah,
So
the concrete
I'd suggest
pad is-
Devin was incorrect then.
No, the concrete pad does not need a permit. The building permit was not needed in the first place for this project.
But that was after we went back to, okay, I don't want to get into it. I think it was a terrible decision. I hope we don't do it again. Just like I hope we don't do this scenario with the fire hydrant with Mr. Brown. There's processes that are enacted. There was a very clear submittal that came through Planning Commission, that came through the board. I looked back through it. I didn't see anything there about a future phase. We can twist words all day long. I think it was a bad decision.
noted. Anything else?
Any other board members have anything else?
I think the skate park looks great. I think that it's a great addition to the community. I think what are procedural concerns, I think that we entered into a license agreement that was broad, frankly. And I think that I appreciate, Mike, you're providing your feedback. And I think that now in the event we have another community group that raises a boatload of money and wants to give the village something, we have an opportunity to reflect on how we all feel this went. I think that this went swimmingly. And I think we can all draw meaningful distinctions between the skate park and other activities that come before the board. So I just want to commend the skate park group for the good work. I think it's a great addition to the park. And I know a lot of people spent a lot of time and effort to raise the money and to see the project go through.
Ron, and you said you need to leave soon. Do you
Soon.
want to add anything or?
No, nothing to add.
Okay, Arvid?
I'm very happy with the skate park. I think it's a great addition. I do understand, if there's some murkiness to our procedure, we should tighten that up. But I don't feel like this is a reason to be unhappy about the skate.
I just spent the entire weekend flying by the seat of my pants with an event that we have never done before. Centennial celebration, so I can appreciate what it is like when you have an opportunity in front of you to take action and you just have to make a choice. So I can see where the skate park organization came from in that respect. And I mean, to Mike's question about oversight, sure, it's nice to be included. I don't know that it was necessary here. I don't really want to get into it, whether or not it was or not. I agree with what has already been stated. I think it's a great item that is currently under construction. I look forward to the ribbon cutting.
Mhm.
Did you want to go now? Because this next topic's going to be a little bit longer.
Which one is that?
Closed session.
Oh,
No.
Well, we have the review process, but that's
Yeah,
probably going to even take you
I
longer.
was in admin and finance for closed sessions.
Right.
That's
right.
all. Thanks, guys. Sorry, I don't,
Thanks, Ron.
my retirement job.
6J review, the new administrator review process. Neil, I'll let you speak to this.
Sure. So I took the liberty of putting together some stuff around creating and establishing a review process for the administrator, because right now we don't necessarily have a consistent process that exists. This idea came to mind because I think late last year we had kind of a more spontaneous opportunity to provide review feedback, and I think we all would benefit from a predictable process that consistently that can allow us to consistently evaluate an administrator's performance and provide feedback. And so this is just when I frankly had the bandwidth to put together kind of an idea that is only that an idea that I'm offering to the board for thought and feedback. I tried to lay out in the memo what I'm suggesting that we do, which would be to adopt, and just by way of starting a conversation, I'm suggesting we adopt document 1 as presented and the processes and procedures that are outlined in it. But I acknowledge and would appreciate any feedback or reaction from board members about what they think would be valuable to do. There are a couple of things that I will call out specifically. First, it's my view that connecting performance and compensation is common and is something that I think is a valuable part of any evaluation process. I am not suggesting in this first year, if we were to adopt this tonight, that we would connect the evaluation to compensation, because I think we need an opportunity to all give it a try and see how we think it's going. So I built the timeline with that connection in mind. And so as we look, particularly, it would be page 332 of the book, under that timeline and process. We put that full year performance review in October so that any outcome from that performance review is known in connection with our budgeting process, because that's when we would have an opportunity to set any salary decisions for the coming year. Again, in this first year, I'm suggesting we essentially just do a dry run before we really begin tying compensation to it. But I wanted to retain that option. And I guess just to kind of walk through what that timeline suggests, in November, we would have a proposal and initial discussion of goals with the administrator and the board. This process does not require that there be goals. So in the documentation that you'll see, there are 8 performance criteria that I suggest we use. We do not have to make goals for any of those if we don't want to. But we have the option to, and there's no requirement for goals, nor is there any limit on the number of goals we could set. I see goals as a way to really refine if within a performance criteria we think there's a particular item that's not reflected in that scoring table, we can add it, essentially. And then I also think the goals provide an opportunity for the administrator to come to us if there are performance items that he would like to see added to his goals. If there are educational outcomes that he would like to see added, he could do that as well. So it's really a place to create in those goals. So in November, we would have that initial discussion, and then we would wait a beat and adopt final goals in December, because I think things need to age. Like fine wine, it's good to give a moment to think about things. A mid-year performance review would be in June, and that's really just a check-in. And then the full year performance would be in October, and then the process would repeat. Would repeat. So those are kind of the highlights. I'll say, Brad, I appreciate you putting me in touch with PAA. That really forms the basis of this. So those, that Grafton document 2, is what they sent. I dropped a couple of those criteria because they didn't seem, one was for safety. That doesn't seem particular. I mean, obviously safety is important, but I don't think we need to be evaluating the administrator on it. So the list ultimately in the suggested review document is not exact to what Grafton had. But basically, I took that Grafton document and made it so that goals would be a part of it, any evaluation.
Yeah.
Is essentially what I did.
Yep.
I'd welcome questions, feedback, and I've got a note ready to make comments. And so if there are comments or substantive changes we'd like to see, we can certainly make those and bring those back at a future discussion. Or if we like it, we can adopt it and begin kind of going through that first trial year.
I knew that PAA would have something out of the box that could be used.
Yeah.
So.
And it was helpful, I think, to see their categories.
Yep.
Because I just adopted those categories pretty much also.
Right. Yep.
I like the idea of goals. I think it's a bit much for every one of the topics to have goals, because you start to get to be it's hard to measure things like that.
To my point, we don't have to do goals for every one of the.
No, I know. Where I was going with it is I like number 2, and I'm all about trying it for a year and then even getting Devin's feedback about what works and doesn't work.
So you'd like to see us just adopt the Grafton?
Yeah. It's a little cleaner, especially for our first trial. And then if we get to the point where you have a bunch of goals for other things, well, we can add pages.
Yeah, and there are listed options at the end of the one that was used for Grafton, where you can indicate, here's what we'd like to see for next year. Here's the goals from last year, summarize.
Yes. At the end of the day, it's a trial. Because I think, to your point, we're not going to worry about safety, but we might find something else that we want to, that even Devin says, I want you to measure me on this.
The only thing that I contemplated just suggesting, let's just do what Grafton did. And the only thing that I didn't like about the Grafton example was that the goals were not tied ultimately to that final performance score. And so they were more suggestive than they were meaningful. And so the draft that I made was an attempt to give the goals more teeth, I guess, than just an advisory sort of moment.
It's great, but it's super hard to measure.
Well, I think that all of this is going to be fairly subjective.
At least with the Grafton and the 1 through 10, that's a number, and then you're done with it, and then everything else becomes subjective and kind of a discussion that then may skew some of your points before. I've been involved in measurements where it's more abstract, and everybody leaves upset.
Okay.
My interpretation versus your interpretation versus anybody else's here, and then Devin's review of his own performance. There's going to be a goal in finance that I'm going to have no clue about because I'm not involved in any of that. It'd be hard for me to measure that or provide value.
Well, to your point, I mean, we had a board of 7 and none of us, except maybe Brad,
probably, sit on
know
all of them.
all of the components. So, I mean, do you envision us providing Brad with recommendations and then he decides? I don't think we want 7 of us deciding goals for everything or scoring everything.
I can tell you how this is done in the past. In Ben Krummenauer's tenure, when he was here, we had a process like this, and it workshopped itself after the budget workshop. So when we did the budget workshop in October, we stayed and went into closed, and then we did the workshop for the review form. The 7 board members basically did their homework at the DACE and just came up with
Okay.
the numbers. And I think if I remember correct, and you may not have been around for this, Carrie, it might have been Fran, but I think we collectively worked on a single version of the form.
Okay.
We all provided the input. We decided, all right, what in this category, what's the overall rating? This, great. All right, move
Yeah.
on. And then he did one of his own for his feedback to allow us to be able to use that in our discussion. And then we presented the final to him in November, and then that was tied to
Okay.
the formal appraisal that was given. So,
And I think just to that question, because it's a good question, there is homework that would be connected to this. So that full year review, essentially the vision is that we would work together as a full board, because I think evaluating the administrator is a full board responsibility. And yeah, there's 7, and we've got different opinions. I know I've been involved in review processes where people go, well, I don't believe that perfection exists, so you will never get a 5 from me, right? Like, all of that is true, and that's just part of the deal. And there's no process that can avoid that. But Arvid, to your point, the goals would be workshopped by the entire board. We would work on those goals together. We would adopt them together, which, to Mike's point, would mean that we would all be there for that discussion and would know what that goal was meant to achieve. And then in that full year review, my intention and thought was board members would complete these forms on their own and would bring them with them to the meeting, where we were to that meeting in October. And then exactly what you described, we would essentially go through and say, well, for item 1, I gave a 4. And then Mike goes, well, I gave a 3 and you gave a 2, whatever. And then we talk it out and come up with a final number for that ranking table, for the table up top, and then for any goals that we decided to adopt at the end. And I think it is a lot of voices, but I think, to me, this is a core part of our job, is to conduct the review. And it is time consuming and it is hard, but I think that we need to have a robust process where we're all equal players in that review. And so that was the philosophy that informed kind of how I thought this could go.
But we got to do something. Whatever version is probably going to get changed.
Yeah, it'll
the
get
first-
updated.
yeah.
Sure. Yeah, it's a living document for sure.
I'd love to make a motion for option 2, document 2, that we move forward on that one, just because I think as a start, it's a little simpler. It's the same thing, just a lot less written goals, right?
I would like to see us do document 1, just because I think it provides an opportunity for deeper conversation and more work around goals. And I don't like document 2 because I don't think it sets us up for goals to have as much teeth as I'd like to see them have.
Sure.
But the board will work its will. And I acknowledge that what I produced looks like a bit of a behemoth. But I think it's an important task, and I think that it is kind of a behemoth when you get into it.
I think document 2 has a little bit of redundancy, and I feel like the categories that you narrowed it down to in document 1 cut out some of that redundancy. And like you said, we don't have to do goals the first year. We can just decide that that's too much for the first year and add it in. I think in document 2, some of it just seems like the quality and quantity seemed a little repetitive.
And Mike, to your point too, so if we adopted document 1 and we didn't do any goals, essentially
it would look
we're
exactly
just doing
It is.
document 2.
I just think goal measurement is going to be really hard. So I'm not opposed to it.
I think it could be hard, but I think it's important. And I think that and Devin, we haven't heard from you. I'd welcome your thoughts on this, but to me, the goals give us the opportunity to weigh in more meaningfully. And Devin leads the village. I mean, I think I have, in my previous roles, seen review processes that are far more complicated than this. And to your point, Mike, I looked at them and thought, holy crap, that's over-engineered. But I think that this tries to strike that right balance.
I personally believe that review should be simplified, easy, just like you have goals that are something that you can be attainable or measurable would be one thing to make sure that they are. And also making sure that it's a comprehensive idea of areas that you're excelling in, areas you need to work on. And without having type of goals, you don't really know what you're achieving. Because someone might say, We want more check-ins. Okay, so I make sure that that update goes out more often, right? So something like that would be achievable that you're getting to. If we're just throwing numbers out, numbers are subjective. Like you said, someone might say I'm doing a 5, someone might say I'm doing a 1. I don't see much value in a number. I see more value in the goals, truthfully.
So you like 2 better?
I
Oh,
personally
excuse me,
like,
1, yeah.
I personally like the way that 2 is laid out, but I like how you distilled the appropriate categories used in document 1. So I want to see document 1 laid out like document 2 and move goals to the back sheet.
Okay.
That's what I would like to see, because that, in my mind, allows someone to look at one glance, here's how I stack up, and on the backside, they can relate to certain categories. Like, I'm thinking that if we've got goals out there for a certain individual because they're currently, if you're going 0 to 5, if somebody's a 5 in a certain category, I'd be less apt to try to push them on a goal for that category because they're already well adept at that category. Let's develop them in another one by giving them a stretch goal in a category that they're a 3 or a 4. And so that's what would generate what you see on the backside. And that's how I see it. So I like what you distilled it to for document 1. I want to see it in the layout similar to the way that number 2 is laid out. That's what I would like.
Do we need a
I
motion?
kind of like 1 the way it is myself. Just
Lot of
because
paper, though.
It's a lot of paper.
That doesn't have
However,
to
it
be
doesn't
filled
have to
out.
be filled in.
Right.
You know, and like, if there is a goal, even, you know, whatever we decide we're looking for in job knowledge, if Devin provides us something that says, here's an example, then we have some basis on which to score them,
Sure.
other than, okay, there was a budget made, it's a 3.
I can appreciate that. Yeah.
And I guess I laid it out. I mean, some of this might be a conversation around formatting. I put the goals under those categories because then to me, in my mind, if I'm thinking about job knowledge, everything that I need to think about related to job knowledge is right on one sheet. And then, you know, if there's a goal that we've created, we can look at it in the context of the overall number that we've given Devin in that category and all like that. If we want to change the format, I'm not completely wedded to it. It just, that was the layout that I thought made sense.
No, the layout's cumbersome. I think that you'd be far more effective just writing goals and then having a write-in box. I don't think it needs to be laid out like that. And if you're looking to save some paper, you know, you could probably get that down to 4 or 5 pages easily.
Well, I think if we were to condense things for this first year, we could do what Brad said, which is to basically take the boxes, put them all back on one page, and then create more free-form goal space on the back, basically, which I think would accomplish similar things. Just another way to skin the cat.
Yep.
If that's
what I like.
Sure.
Because if we want to move them to each category for more meaning, we can choose to do that.
Sure.
That's something we can do. We're not limited by this layout. But I think Mike made a motion to adopt version 2. The motion still exists without a second. So if anybody wishes to make a second on it, we can. Or it may die.
They can die.
They can die. Okay. Do you want to try again?
Well, let me.
You don't want to try again?
I'm fine with all of them, because
You're
the
becoming.
hopes is that we're gonna change it. I just like to see us
Yeah.
do something.
All right. I will move that we adopt version 1's language in version 2's format.
I'll second that.
Okay?
Yeah.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Carried. And then just on the side note of it, if we have a budget workshop coming up, I would like to see this kind of be done on that same night.
So do you, just procedurally, I have this document in an editable format. So I'll make some edits to kind of get it to what you
Get
described.
them out for homework.
So
Yep.
we've got it that. And then you'd like to see us get it out so we complete it and we bring it to the budget workshop? That's what you're suggesting?
October, right? That's late October?
No, we have one in September, one in October, and one in November.
Yeah, I'm talking about the October workshop.
Yeah, we haven't
It's
set
too
a date
soon to
yet,
do
yeah.
anything in September.
Yeah,
We haven't
so-
set a date for the October one yet.
So then that form, to your point, will be distributed in advance of that budget workshop
Yep.
and board members
Yeah, I
come.
want time to think about
with
the
it
categories
completed.
and how I'm gonna, and
Exactly.
how I'm gonna rate them, and he needs time to do his own
And
self.
to be clear
So-
though, are we conducting an evaluation on the past year
Yes.
at that performance? Okay.
Yep.
And then are we also discussing any potential goals for the next year in October?
Mm-hmm.
Just to lay out what the expectation is.
Yep, exactly.
Make sure we're all ready to go.
Yeah, and I'm not interested in tying it to wages at this point. I mean, we
I think
can't-
in the first year, we go through it and we
can
see how it
talk
goes.
about that in the future, but that's not a driver right now. We need to get our feet under us
Yep.
first.
Totally agree.
Okay, motion
Thanks for
passes.
your time, guys.
Motion passes 5-0
You're doing that legwork.
with one abstention because he was present and then left, so. Okay, we're gonna entertain a motion to move to closed session with regard to pay levels for police officers.
So moved.
Thanks, Arvid.
Second.
Thanks, Neil. Roll call vote. Marcia?
Aye.
Arvid?
Aye.
Myself as an aye.
Aye.
Mike? Neil?
Aye.
All right, the ayes have it, 5-0. We'll go to closed session. So is it miscellaneous one?
Yeah, just hit it. Here we go.
Okay. Do we need to open the door? Is there anybody in the hallway?
I don't think there's anyone hallway.
9 o'clock.
Mike's back on.
Let us follow the.
Okay,
rules.
I will entertain motions after coming out of closed session. It sounds like I've been nominated to make those motions. So I move that we direct the village administration and to enter into negotiations with the police union to adjust our wage scales not to exceed the amount discussed in closed session.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion by myself and a second by Arvid. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0, one abstention. And then I will move that we direct the village administrator to extend an offer of an adjusted wage to our newly created police chief, not to exceed the amount discussed in closed session.
Second.
Motion by myself, second by Neil.
Mike,
Sorry, myself, second by Mike.
getting exciting around here.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0, one abstention. Okay, I think that moves us to the end of our agenda, if I'm not mistaken.
You are correct.
Any other items from anybody, future agenda items or updates, Marcia? No?
No?
Okay,
Oh, okay. Grand opening of the skate park is September 22nd at 12 to 1. There's
Sunday.
a Packers game at 12. Apologies. We will be celebrating and giving out our scholarships of equipment to Osceola school members.
Cool.
Brain is fried.
So that's boards and helmets and
Yeah.
awesome.
We had a court commission meeting earlier this week, and
We did.
it might be of value to review some of the forfeiture amounts and perhaps some of the ordinances that we have in place.
The court commission only meets once a year.
Right.
And it seems like it would behoove us to look at that sooner than the next meeting.
Got it.
So whether that is
Okay.
the next village board meeting but yes,
There's some interesting
there's some interesting things on there.
tidbits on there.
We'll leave it at that.
Okay, we'll look at it. We'll take a look at it. Mike?
What's up with the liquor store parking lot? You were gonna look into that? We thought we were moving forward here.
It was trying to be sold. We stopped that through a title search. And now we're seeing what their next steps are with that because communication has been hard to come by on that one. So we're still making
Well,
progress.
let's put it on October.
So
We'll make that request right now.
my point is I don't want to see us run through another winter where we don't know
Right.
who owns it and we're plowing something.
And
we
we're
don't-
plowing something we don't own. That's correct. Yeah, that's why I want to see it. So thank you for bringing that up, Mike.
I have spoken with Devin about this briefly, but I think it would be smart for us to take a look at our general zoning rules. Particularly, I know, for example, our ADUs right now have got a silly minimum that doesn't make sense. And I don't know what kind of a process makes sense for us to embark on that. I think that's a pretty decently sized project, but I don't know.
Let's start with plan then.
Yeah.
I don't know where it would begin, but I would very much like to see us
October
begin
plan.
that process of saying, these are the rules we have. Do they make sense? And I think to Ron's point about planning, let's have a conversation about
Right.
planning. Let's have a conversation about those things because I don't know. And if they've been reviewed recently and we don't feel that there's changes that need to be made, very well.
Yeah.
But I'm not confident that they have been. And I think we find ourselves in a housing shortage
It's
and we
going
need
to
to be
be a
thoughtful.
long discussion that will be all winter, but it'll start with the planning commission.
Yeah.
What's the acronym you used at the beginning?
ADUs, accessory dwelling
Accessory
units.
dwelling
Gotcha,
units.
okay.
ADUs.
Yeah,
400 square feet's the maximum
But-
size for that.
yeah.
As a general policy matter, I think we need to re-engage with those and at least know that the rules that we have affirmatively chosen, rather than whatever has gone on
Are
in
you
the past.
moving someone into your little skinny lot?
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not.
They're like skinny jeans or
You
something.
got that one, Carrie?
Skinny lights, skinny jeans.
For plan commission for October? Okay. The only thing I have is to acknowledge the village staff for all the work that they did around Wheels and Wings and Osceola Community Fair. I think it was a fantastic event all around. With the Centennial, it was absolutely a great event. I know I unfortunately was not able to make it up to the airport this year. I usually try to get up there for a couple hours, but it just wasn't possible this year. But it was a great event. I mean, I had no major incidents that I was aware of, other than we had to send a fair board member out to buy a box of toilet paper on Saturday night.
Good problems to
The
have.
bathroom was out of toilet paper. That was it. Otherwise, nothing, like no major incidents.
So to the point of my permit thing, Shirley Johnson still didn't write down how many bathrooms are at Beer Fest.
Oh, got it.
Not that I really care. I'm
Yeah.
sure they're gonna do fine, but it's good
Yeah.
documentation to
For
have.
porta potties.
And the
Yeah.
question is there, how many bathrooms?
Yeah.
I will let her know. She really is one of our best.
No, I know. Again,
She'll wanna know.
I'm not looking,
She's been in our office 3 times.
yeah, I'm not looking to pick on Shirley. It's more of a big picture.
No, I'll let her know though, so she knows.
Okay, well, I think
The next person knows.
Yeah.
at the risk of not having it be a 3-hour meeting, we will adjourn at 8:58 PM.
See you on the 30th.